Hey friends, before we dive into tonight's story, did you know that nearly 80% of the people who watch these videos aren't subscribed? If you're enjoying this kind of content, consider hitting the subscribe button. It really helps a lot, and it keeps these long stories going. Also, I'd love to hear from you. What time is it right now where you are, and which city are you listening from tonight? And if these stories help you sleep, feel free to tap the thanks button to support the channel. It truly means a lot. All right, let's get into it. The cruiser's engine hummed under my seat as I eased out of the station parking lot at 2:47 a.m. My breath came in shallow bursts, half from the cold April air and half from the knot of unease twisted in my gut. 4 hours into this night shift, and I'd already been to 3 minor fender benders and a barking dog call that turned out to be nothing more than a lonely Labrador chasing the wind. But dispatch's tone on that 2200 block of Elm Street, possible pedestrian struck, had picked up a dangerous edge. I flicked on the alley lights and steered through the drizzle, each drop on the windshield a tiny percussion against the wipers. There's something about rain in the dark that sharpens your senses, makes every sound echo. I parked 12 feet from the curb and grabbed my flashlight, the metal cool in my palm. My partner, Thompson, stepped out behind me, her shoulders hunched against the damp. I could see her silhouette in the glow of the cruiser's strobes. We exchanged a nod, no words yet, because we both knew that once you cross that threshold, the world inside changes. The house at the corner was a 2-story townhouse, pale vinyl siding streaked with grime. The porch light was on, but its bulb flickered, so weak it seemed half dead. I called Cedar Springs PD into my radio mic. No response but static. Good. That meant the channel was clear for us. A single set of footprints led from the front stoop down onto the sidewalk, barefoot, mud-spattered. We crouched over them. No shoe prints, just skin. My heart jolted. Pedestrian struck, or was it something else? Thompson walked to the porch railing. Blood, she murmured before I could say it. Dark stains pool around us. I swallowed. 2 drops had seeped through the boards and dripped onto the walkway's edge. The neighbor, old Mr. Davis on the next block, stumbled out in a robe, face pale, eyes wide. She came out the front door, he stammered. I saw her run. Didn't look like a car hit her, she stumbled out. His finger trembled, pointed back at the open door. Inside, upstairs. I switched the flashlight on and swept the beam over the threshold. The foyer was slick with crimson, and muddy handprints smeared the wall as if dragged by something heavy. My gut knotted tighter. This wasn't a hit and run. Faintly, Thompson clicked her radio. "Cleared up here," she said. "No sign of a car impact. Doesn't make sense." I ducked under the porch rail and entered. The foyer lights were out. My flashlight's beam skittered over shoes by the door, polished Oxfords, a pair of running sneakers, then panned up to the staircase. The first step was streaked red. I braced my free hand on the railing and followed the prints up. Each finger-shaped smear was thick, as if she'd pressed her palms hard against the banister. It made me swallow hard. My pulse hammered so loud I feared it would give me away. At the landing, the hallway stretched away, dim moonlight filtering through a curtained window at the far end. Bedroom doors lined the hall like silent witnesses. I tapped my radio mic. "Ramirez, ascending to 2nd floor. Cover me." Thompson's voice crackled back. "On it." "You want I should clear ground level first?" I hesitated. Protocol said always clear the lower floors before heading up. But instinct shouted someone upstairs needed help now. "Negative," I said, fast and quiet. My boots made no sound on the threadbare runner. I flicked the beam left, right, each door closed, except the last one at the very end. Its latch was broken. The door hung crooked. I squeezed through the gap. Inside was a small bedroom, the walls painted in pale green, now mottled with shadow and red. The carpet was soaked. I saw a lace-trimmed nightgown huddled in the corner, bathed in shadow. No body in sight. My flashlight caught movement, matted hair on the floor near the dresser. I moved closer. "Police," I called. "Show yourself." My voice sounded distant, as if coming from underwater. Silence answered. Then a low groan. I spun the light toward the doorway. Thompson was there, weapon drawn. She frowned. "You okay?" she whispered. I nodded, pointing at the knotted quilt by the window. "Something moved," I said. "I thought I saw—" I never finished. A soft thump drifted from the room behind me. I spun. The door creaked. My hand tightened on the Glock. Time slowed. I saw the top of a man's head drop into view. Dark hair matted, face pale as a corpse. His shoulders slumped as he slid into the room, knife hand dripping. He stared at me. Terror exploded in my chest. Instinct took over. I yelled, "Police! Drop the weapon!" He froze, mouth opening into a silent scream. Then he lunged. Thompson yelled my name as I squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out, deafening in the tight space. The man went down in a heap of sweat and blood. My ears rang. I pressed my palm to my mouth to muffle the cry that burst out on my exhale. Thompson moved in, cuffing him as I slid to my knees, mind racing. "Get EMS," I said between breaths, "and get forensics." My glove-covered hand hovered over his wrist. He'd cut himself, a shallow slash that dripped dark fluid onto the linoleum. His eyes fluttered shut. I leaned closer. In the dim light, I saw tears tracking through blood on his face. I recognized him. Roger Miller, 38, former schoolteacher. The Miller case file had landed on my desk last Thursday. His daughter's accident, Lily Miller, age 8, struck and killed right there on Elm Street 6 months prior. He'd never recovered. I looked up at Thompson. "He snapped," I said. "All this blood, he tried to end it." She nodded, eyes heavy. We stood before the open window, wind rattling the loose shutter above, as though the house itself lamented. My flashlight drifted to a photo on the bedside table. A small girl hugging a stuffed bear, her face bright against the dirt and grief. Lily's bear. I swallowed a lump. Back in the foyer, I replayed every step I'd taken, each footprint, each handprint. Something gnawed at me. Why were there no footprints leading back upstairs? Why did the walkway have only her prints toward the curb? Mr. Davis insisted he'd seen her run towards his porch, not down the stairs. Had his mind played tricks? Or was there something I'd missed? Dispatch finally answered. All units, suspect in custody, victim pronounced deceased. I closed my eyes. The word victim felt hollow. Lily. Mr. Miller, that night on the stairs. My radio crackled again. "Ramirez, we need a statement at the station," the lieutenant's voice said. My partner squeezed my shoulder. "Let's finish our report," she said. But as I climbed back into my cruiser, every shadow on Maple Avenue seemed alive, whispering questions I couldn't yet answer. I sat behind the wheel a long moment, the city lights blurred through misty windows. Somewhere inside, I heard her breathing, soft, raspy, like a child's lullaby gone wrong. I shut my eyes, and for a second, I swear, I felt a small hand brush mine on the dashboard. Then the engine cut, and silence swelled. My pulse slowed just enough to remind me, this is real, and tomorrow I'll have to go through it all again. But tonight, the questions were the only company I had. The sun was just rising over Cedar Springs when I finally crawled out of bed, mind feeling heavier than my 38-pound vest. Every muscle ached from yesterday's climb up that staircase, but it was the questions that had me limp. Footprints without return prints, handprints dragged upward, and Mr. Davis's trembling denial of a car ever having struck her. I forced myself into the morning routine. Cold shower, lukewarm coffee, uniform pressed and ready, and slipped into my cruiser before the station buzzed alive. By 7:15 a.m. I was back on Elm Street, the townhouse now cordoned off with yellow tape and forensics vans parked like sentinels. The early light turned the vinyl siding a dull gray. The porch looked mundane in daylight, its horrors masked. I ducked under the tape and met Agent Cole from the sheriff's office. Tall, precise, his eyes already scanning every inch. "She's gone," I said, nodding toward the curb where Lily Miller had collapsed. No body this time, just the outline chalked on the pavement and a single strip of dried blood. Cole traced it with a gloved fingertip. Victim removed, coroners cleared out early, but they found something odd in her clothes. He flipped a small evidence bag across to me. Inside, a single rose petal pressed like a grim bookmark. I frowned. She wasn't carrying flowers. Precisely. He pocketed it. Autopsy confirmed 2 gunshot wounds. Clean, small caliber. Then the chest wound from the blade. But there's something else. Bruises on her wrists, ligature marks, as if she'd been bound. My stomach sank. The narrative shifted. It wasn't a fleeting burst of rage. It was organized, methodical. Someone had held her, forced her upstairs, stabbed and shot her in cold blood, then shoved her down those stairs. Why? Who? Cole led me inside. The stairs were now draped in a translucent tarp, each step numbered. My flashlight beam was useless in daylight. Overhead, fluorescence glowed sterile. Still, the smell lingered. Coppery tang of dried blood, stale fear. I knelt at step 6 where the biggest smudge of crimson lay and traced the pattern with my gloved finger. "She couldn't have fallen here," I murmured. "These handprints are backward. She was dragged up, blood first." He exhaled. "Chain of custody says she ran down, but this says otherwise." I rose, head spinning. "We need statements. Neighbors, friends, anyone." Over the next 2 hours, I knocked on every door within a 2-block radius. Some residents were shaking, others angry at the disruption. Mr. Davis, the one who'd pointed out the window, insisted again he saw her stumble past his porch. When I asked for an exact timeline, his brow furrowed. I heard her cry out from inside, then footsteps. I thought it was her husband calling. Then she burst through the door. His voice wavered. But the car I thought I heard never came. I jotted notes. No car, no witnesses to a vehicle. Footprints leading outward but none inward. Something didn't add up. By noon, I'd returned to the station and sat across from Roger Miller in the interrogation room. He looked hollow, slumped in his chair, dark circles under his eyes. His suit was rumpled, tie askew. On the table sat that photo of Lily with her bear. I placed it before him. "Mr. Miller, tell me your timeline again." He nodded, hands trembling. "She was playing in the front yard. I was inside. I heard a gunshot. I ran to the window but saw nothing. I grabbed my daughter's hand, tried to pull her back, and then I felt a blow to my shoulder." His voice cracked. "I thought it was me. When I turned, I saw blood everywhere." He pressed his forehead into his palms. "I don't remember running up those stairs. I don't remember shooting her." His eyes met mine, frantic. I loved her so much, I would never hurt her. I leaned back. "The evidence shows otherwise. Bruises on your wife's wrists, 2 bullet wounds, knife marks, then you slit your own wrist." I paused. "Mr. Miller, did someone force you to do it? Did you lose control? He stared at the wall. Number I don't know. The afternoon bled into evening with forensics sorting fibers and prints, while detectives combed through phone logs and bank records. By 7 p.m., I returned to the townhouse alone. The air was cooler now. Cicadas thrummed in the hedges. I stood at the curb and stared up at the porch. A single rose lay near the crime scene outline, fresh, dewy. I flicked on my flashlight from my belt and swept the beam over the stairs. The tarp had been removed. I could see the varnish chipped at the edge of each tread. I stepped onto the first stair and pressed my fingertip to the wood. Dust coated my glove. Somewhere above, the wind rattled a loose window. I climbed slowly, flashlight carving arcs. At step 14, the one just below the landing, I spotted a splinter in the wood with a tiny pool of dried sap. On the riser, embedded in the grain, was a single thread, a strand of black fabric, slightly elastic. I plucked it with forceps. Unknown origin, I whispered to the night. At the top, I pressed my palm to the wall beside the master bedroom door. The wallpaper was soft with age, but I felt ridges. Impressions of fingernails, narrow and deep. I crouched and wiped the corner with a swab. Lift prints, I muttered. The scent of dust and rot hit me as I turned the knob. Inside, the room was barren. Furniture moved, sheets replaced. Someone had cleaned. The bedroom was staged. I realized they'd scrubbed away any sign of struggle. If Miller did it, he returned with cleaning supplies. If someone else did it, they staged the scene to look like a husband's breakdown. A sudden creak behind me made me spin. My flashlight caught a figure in the doorway, Thompson silently leaning against the frame. "Found something?" she asked. I held up the thread. New evidence. Someone else was here. I swallowed. Either we have a frame-up or a second player. She straightened, eyes fierce. "Let's notify Cole and get warrants to search his phone records, any calls or messages before the murder, and trace where that rose came from." We left the house together, the beam of our flashlight slipping over the porch railing as though seeking notice. I climbed into the cruiser and started the engine. As we pulled away, I glanced back. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw a shadow at the top of the stairs, tall, thin, watching. I tightened my grip on the wheel. Back at the station, hours later, I crammed through data. Storm shelter logs, weather radar, cell tower pings. Lily's accident had been 6 months ago, but the storm that day had washed away evidence. The intersection was repaved 2 weeks later. Miller's phone logs showed no calls at the time of her death, but at 2:45 a.m., 2 minutes before I arrived, an encrypted message pinged his phone from an unknown number. It read only DOLL. Seconds later, a reply of "found." My pulse raced. DOLL was her nickname. Someone had been orchestrating this, and they knew exactly when I would arrive. I checked the dispatch tape. No other calls at that hour. The killer, or killers, had the station's frequency. They knew the protocols. The clock on the wall ticked past 3 a.m. I stretched. Exhaustion lancing through me, but I couldn't stop. Too many blanks, too many shadows. I grabbed my coat and headed out again. Back to Elm Street. Back to the hollow house that whispered broken lullabies. Somewhere in that dark, someone waited. And tomorrow, I would have to face them. Just outside the curb tape, I paused and watched the townhouse's windows glint in the street lamps. Thunder rumbled in the distance, a warning of the storm to come. And for the first time, I wondered whether I'd find my own shadow trailing me up those stairs. The street lamps along Elm Street flickered as I climbed out of the cruiser for the 3rd time that night. The rain had started again, phantom droplets dancing on the pavement. each one echoing against the hush of Cedar Springs. My fingers hovered over the door handle, unwilling to break the silence, but duty compelled me forward. I'd spent the past 3 hours poring over Miller's encrypted messages, his phone records, his bank withdrawals, and now I was convinced there was a second player in this nightmare. Inside the station, my desk had become a war room, a wall of printouts for Lily's accident, Miller's phone logs, caddy call transcripts, even weather maps showing the storm that rolled in right before the murder. The encrypted ping, DOLL, and the reply, FOUND, had replayed in my head until I could hear them in my sleep. Whoever sent those texts knew exactly when dispatch would call me to Elm Street. They timed the murder to coincide with my patrol pattern, banking on a standard response time so they could stage the scene. I flicked my flashlight on and stepped through the yellow crime scene tape again. The long vinyl siding of the townhouse was a dull wash of light and shadow now, the rain washing away the last stains of blood. Forensics had already cleared most of the scene, but I knew that in a house like this, nothing was ever truly erased. Gravel crunched under my boots as I crossed the yard toward the side door. That was where the maintenance hatch was, where the painters had left a ladder last spring. If someone wanted to come and go unseen, that would be the spot. My breath plumed in the flashlight beam. I approached the side door and placed my hand on the frame. No muddy prints here, just rainwater dripping through a crack in the threshold. I crouched and swept the beam under the door, saw it. A small drop of red, half dried. Evidence had to be cataloged. I radioed Thompson. "Thompson, meet me at the side entrance, possible entry point." She clicked back almost immediately. "En route. Cover me." Her boots echoed on the porch as she descended the stairs, Glock already out. We pried the door open and entered the kitchen. The bright, fluorescent bulbs over the sink hummed, inconsistent with the rest of the house's low-voltage conservations. On the counter, a smear of lipstick, deep crimson, caught the light. I recognized that shade. The victim had worn it earlier that week on a grocery run. Grocery store cameras had caught her applying it. Whoever came here after she was gone had lingered in this room. Thompson bagged the sample. I leaned in closer. A faint floral scent lingered, like rosewater. My mind flashed back to the petal in the evidence bag. Someone had placed that single rose among Lily's folded clothes before the coroner left. Now I realized it came from this house. There was a black vase on a high shelf, shattered on impact. I picked up the largest shard, careful not to smudge any fibers, and dusted it for prints. The shard was heavy in my glove, sharp as betrayal. I studied the jagged edges. Then I heard a whisper of movement behind me, Thompson pocketing the print lift. I turned. Her face was unreadable. We both knew what this meant. Someone had staged the crime not just to look like domestic rage, but to send a message. "Let's go through the guest quarters," I said softly. Target practice from years of searches and domestic violence calls. The hall led past a laundry alcove, the dryer humming in spite of no power. I kicked it. The grate fell forward, revealing a coil of rope and a small leather pouch. I snagged the pouch and unlatched it. Inside lay a child's hair ribbon, pink satin, frayed at the edges. My throat tightened. That ribbon had been part of Lily's favorite ponytail bow. It was her scent on the strings, shampoo and childhood. "We're no longer talking about Roger Miller alone," I said. Thompson's jaw clenched. She thumbed her radio, unit to dispatch, requesting K9 and arson to check side lot. Outside, the storm was rising. Thunder rolled like distant freight trains. We finished our sweep and tagged the rope and ribbon, labeling them Scene Item 42A and 42B. Back in the foyer, I paused at the bottom of the staircase. I'd climbed these steps twice already. First, chasing phantom bloodstains. Second, reconciling the drag marks with Miller's. The station's neon sign buzzed in the downpour, casting sickly green light across puddles that mirrored broken glass. I parked under the canopy and killed the engine. The world went eerily silent except for the rain drumming on the asphalt. I grabbed my Glock, flashlight, and radio and stepped into the storm. The air smelled of gasoline and ozone, each breath tasting like danger. Inside, the clerk stood behind the counter, eyes wide. He was a teenager, probably scared straight by his first real emergency. I flashed my badge. "Officer Ramirez, Cedar Springs, PD. Where's your manager?" He pointed shaky toward the storage door. He went to check inventory, thought he'd heard someone at the back door. I nodded. "Let's go," I said, voice calm but firm. I followed him through aisles of canned beans and neon-lit refrigerators, the tiles sticky under my boots. At the rear entrance, the door was ajar, rain sloshing inside. I pressed my flashlight beam around the corner. Footprints glistened on the floor. Wet, bare, they led down a narrow hallway toward the storeroom. My pulse spiked. This wasn't the Miller frame-up anymore. It was a trap. "Cover me," I whispered. The clerk crouched behind a stack of crates, his knuckles white on the cardboard. I eased forward, flashlight sweeping. The hallway stretched 5 paces before a door marked "Private Employees Only." I knocked twice. "Cedar Springs PD, open up." No answer. Only the rustle of rain through the vents. I twisted the knob, locked. I set my shoulder and kicked. The door gave with a splintering crack. I rushed in, gun raised. Inside was a small office with a single desk, drawers thrown open, files scattered. On the desk top sat a Polaroid of Lily, smiling in her yellow raincoat, as innocent as any child. Beneath it in black marker were 2 words, "Follow me." My radio crackled to life. Thompson's voice. "Ramirez, do you copy? We've got a 1033 at the address." That was a call for officer in distress. At the Elm Street townhouse. They'd triggered the house alarm. Someone was inside. I felt my heart in my throat. The gas station was a lure. Elm Street was where I'd find the next move. I sprinted back through the rain, adrenaline fueling my chase. My cruiser shuddered as I slammed the doors. I flipped on the siren and raced back north. As I rounded the corner, I saw Thompson's cruiser parked crooked, lights flashing. She stood in the doorway, radio raised. "They've barricaded themselves upstairs," she yelled above the storm. I leapt over the tape and joined her. "Any sign of forced entry?" I asked, scanning the porch. All doors locked, windows latched. No broken glass, no splash of blood. But the rooftop satellite dish was missing. Its mount left jagged, as if someone pried it off from below. Thompson tapped the door. There inside, I heard laughter. Her voice trembled. A child's laugh. I swallowed. Hell, not again. We exchanged a glance and breached the front door together. Inside, the hallway was dark, the scent of rainwater and mildew. No footprints on the linoleum, no handprints on the walls. Everything cleaner than the day Lily died. We swept our beams across the staircase. It looked untouched, but at each tread's edge, tiny scratches, like nails dragging, caught my light. My stomach lurched. "Upstairs," I said. We ascended, guns ready. Each step creaked under our weight. The door at the end was shut. A single pale sock lay on the threshold. I bent to pick it up, a girl's ankle sock, identical to the ones Lily wore on camera that summer. Thompson paled. "Evidence," she whispered. I knocked. "Police, show yourself." No answer. just that distant patter of rain and a soft humming. It was her voice singing, Lily lullaby, tinny, broken. The door creaked open on its own. Inside, moonlight spilled through the blackout drapes. The room was empty except for a rocking chair that swayed slowly, though there was no breeze. On the floor sat a single shoe, Lily's old sneaker, scuffed and small. In the corner, wet footprints led in a circle, then stopped mid-floor. As I swept my light upward, I saw them. 2 small handprints pressed into the dust on the wall, about 4 feet off the ground. My blood ran cold. I raised my radio. "I've got child prints. Request immediate backup." My voice shook despite my training. Then the rocking chair stopped. Silence. The air felt heavy as if watching. A whisper, barely audible. "Why did you leave me?" It came from behind. I spun, gun leveled at nothing. Thompson pointed at the window. I followed her gaze. A silhouette stood on the sill. No face, just a small figure outlined against the storm. I ran to the window and yanked the shutters open. Rain lashed in. The figure was gone. But on the glass was a message scrawled in red mist. "Find me." My radio crackled urgently. Multiple units inbound, forensics, K9. I holstered my Glock and grabbed the little sneaker. Thompson placed a hand on my shoulder. "What do we do?" she asked, voice tight. I looked up at the empty room and felt the walls close in. "We find her," I said softly, "but we do it on our terms." I swallowed. "And we don't stop until we bring her home." Lightning flashed, illuminating the cluttered room, the dust motes dancing like ghosts. In that instant, I knew this wasn't just a murder investigation anymore. It was something deeper, something that would follow me until I answered the question left scrawled on the glass. I turned toward the stairway, each step echoing with possibility and dread. "Let's go," I said, and descended into the unknown, wondering all the while, was I chasing a killer or a ghost? The cruiser's heater rattles in the silence as I pull onto Crestview Court Drive, engine idling beneath the street lamp's yellow halo. It's 11:47 p.m., October 29th, just 2 days before Halloween, when half the county's kids will be in costume, and all of us patrol officers will be biting our nails, wondering which prank tonight will go tragically wrong. I rubbed my gloved palms on my jacket, feeling the scratch of wool against leather. The air outside tastes of dust and decay, like autumn's corpse breathed through a rusty straw. I grip the wheel, glance at my reflection in the rearview mirror, tight jaw, eyes already heavy from 10 hours on the road. Dispatch's voice crackles. Crestview Court Apartments. Multiple calls for disturbance, possible gunshot. Unit 107, respond code 2, code 2. No lights, no siren, but sense of urgency in every breath. I flick on my radio mic. Copy that, dispatcher, en route now. Carter 107. A bead of condensation rolls off the mic's grill. I clear my throat. The hallway outside the driver's door is buried in darkness. Only the amber glow of the entryway's lone bulb cuts a sickly swath through rot and mildew. I step out, flashlight clipped to my belt, casting a narrow beam ahead. The gravel underfoot grinds like bone against bone. My boots sink into frozen puddles, each step an echo that clicks down the narrow corridor of cars lined against the curb. There's no one else here, only the hum of refrigeration units on the apartment roofs overhead, reeking of mold and something fouler I can't name. Somewhere, a lawn sprinkler drips in reluctant rhythm. I jog toward Building C, that sagging brick relic with its cracked front stoop. The vestibule light flickers, then goes dark. I whip out my flashlight, sweep it across peeling paint and matted spiderwebs. A plastic pumpkin decoration lies shattered by the door. Someone's half-hearted attempt at Halloween cheer. The door's latch is rattling. My radio buzzes with the first caller. Voice shrill. He's at my door. He's covered in blood like a monster, ramming his fist through the peephole. Another call, muffled scream, then a click, as if the line cut. I press my back against the wall and slip inside, heart thudding. The air tastes stale, like sour yogurt left in the sun too long. Beneath the faint glow of a single overhead bulb, the linoleum floor bears footprints I can't quite discern. Wet smudges that vanish around the corner. I draw in a steady breath, trying to silence the tremor in my chest. "Officer Carter," I murmur into my mic. Corridor looks empty. Checking door 2. I approach the first door on the left, knuckles raised. My boot scuffs at a smear of blood on the threshold. I knock twice, firm. "Madam, this is the police. Are you all right?" No response. Only the quiet stutter of my own ragged breathing. I ease the door open with flashlight in hand. Living room strewn with overturned chairs. Phone cradle smashed on the coffee table. She must have dropped it in panic. I scan for movement. Nothing. Footsteps upstairs. Soft at first, then fervent. My senses sharpen. The second tenant's call mentioned hearing a gunshot just moments before the masked figure knocked. I lift my flashlight beam to the ceiling, where a bulb swings sluggishly on its frayed wire. I squeeze my taser in my other hand, weight comforting. I step into the hallway, flashlight beam skimming over door 3B. The wooden veneer is dented, chipping paint flakes to the floor. I pause, hand on my holster. A muted thud, thud, like flesh hitting plaster. Then a low moan, half choked. My pulse ratchets up. "Sir, this is the police," I call, voice echoing. "Show me your hands." No reply. I pivot around the corner, light pooling on a dark shape slumped against the opposite wall. He's kneeling, hunched, mask tilted to one side, soaked in dark red that glistens under my beam. His left hand slicks his jaw, pressed tight against ragged flesh. A single eye peers through the mask's hole, wild and pleading. He lifts his other hand, knocking on the wall, as if begging someone inside for shelter. Each glance he casts down the corridor, hoping another door might open. Flesh peels from his chin in long ribbons. The bullet crater under his jaw looks like the gullet of some starving creature. I freeze, mouth suddenly cotton dry. He's not a threat. He's dying. My training fights me, warns me to back away. But he attempts speech again, mouth moving awkwardly. "Please, help." His voice a slurry of blood and bone. I flick off my taser, push it back in its holster. "Stand up slowly," I say, though I know he can't. He stands anyway, stagger step, mask clattering against bruised cheek. My flashlight shakes in my grip. I keep one hand on my radio. "Medic, stand by." I have a self-inflicted GSW victim, facial injury, conscious but deteriorating. He tilts his head, eyes glazing. He tries to lean on me, weight collapsing onto my arm. His soaked jacket sticks to my forearm, warm. I yank open my glove box and rip out sterile gauze pads, tearing the package. Another knock, louder, frantic, jars me. The tenant from 2A, screaming words I can't make out. Doors down the corridor slam, one after another, like the heartbeat of a dying building. No one else will help him. They treat him like a monster. I hover him against the wall, pressing bandages against the wound. Voice calm, but adrenaline flaring. "You're going to be okay. Help's coming." His one good eye blinks twice. He tries to nod. His lips part again. I hear him whisper, "I just needed someone." His voice trails off. My heart lurches. I don't know if he'll live. Sirens wail distant, growing closer. Red and blue slicing the night through cracked windows. The corridor's shadows recoil from the lights as two paramedics burst in, kit straps slung over their shoulders. They move with efficient urgency. One grabs the wrist to check pulse, the other cuts away the mask, exposing the full devastation. The man's good eye flickers with recognition, then dims as they lift him onto the stretcher. I step back, letting them pass. A quiet falls over Crestview's hallway as they wheel him out. I catch a glimpse of the witnesses huddled behind half-closed doors. Eyes wide, some glistening with tears, all avoiding my gaze. I close the remaining doors gently with my flashlight, pulling the hallway's darkness back over the blood and fear. Alone again, I lean on my flashlight's beam. My radio buzzes. All clear, Officer 107. You can secure the scene and clear when ready. I nod, though no one sees. I sweep the beam once more, memorizing spatter patterns, the way the wall puckers from dried blood. I imagine the tenant's face as he pounded, begging for help. How long before he succumbed to shock and infection? How many more slammed doors before mine opened? The paramedics thank me as they head to the ambulance. I watch them through the doorway's crack, heart hammering. Their stretcher bounces over the curb, disappearing into the forest of headlights. The night swallows their red glow. I lean my forehead against the wall, breath coming in jagged sobs. My radio falls silent. The building's stillness hums around me, an unholy lullaby. I unclip my mic, voice rough. Carter, 107 to dispatch. Scene is secure. I'll file report from the station. I step outside, cold air biting through my jacket. My flashlight clicks off, plunging me into the cage of streetlight. The broken pumpkin sits by the door. I bend, pick it up. The plastic grin stares back, cracked, empty. I press it to my chest, thumb against its hollow eye. No one handed me a pumpkin at Halloween. Tonight I carry this one as a reminder. I walk to my cruiser, keys in hand. Every step echoes with the weight of that man's final scream, unanswered. I pause at the sidewalk's edge, look back at Crestview Court. Darkness hovers behind every window, as blank as memory. I slide into the driver's seat, close the door. The heater groans. I place the pumpkin on the dash, face out. Hands shaking, I reach for the wheel. Outside, a wind kicks up leaves, and I swear I hear a soft rap, like a fist on glass, before the world goes silent. I grip the wheel tight. Headlights disappear down the road. No headlights return. The memory of his single, pleading eye stays with me as I drive off into the cold, empty night, wondering who will answer the next knock. The cruiser sits cold in my driveway when I finally turn off the engine, but I don't step out. I leave the pumpkin on the dash, half hidden in shadow, its cracked grin mocking the silent house. Inside, the living room light flickers. I can almost feel its hesitation, as though it's uncertain whether to stay lit or plunge everything into darkness. I lean back in the seat, hand still gripping the wheel, heart pounding so loud I can hear it in the steering column. My radio lies dead in the cup holder. No more calls. Nothing but my own ragged breath inside this steel cocoon. I finally push the door open and step onto the porch, body stiff from hours behind the wheel. I close the door softly, careful not to disturb the house any more than it already is. Inside, coats hang by the entryway. One of mine slips off the hook when I brush past, falling to the floor in a heavy thud. I don't bother picking it up. Instead, I walk barefoot down the hallway, lights guiding me deeper. The bedroom door stands ajar, just enough that the lamp's glow reaches the corridor. I pause at the threshold, flick on the lamp, and stare at the bed where my wife is curled under blankets, her back to me. I watch the rhythm of her breathing for a long moment, as if she's proof the world still makes sense. I step inside, shed my jacket, let it fall to the floor next to my patrol boots. She stirs, murmurs something indistinct, then wanders back into sleep. I leave the lamp on and sit on the edge of the bed, head in my hands. My knuckles press into my scalp, and I can taste blood in my mouth, the stale tang of fear and adrenaline. I should file my report, call dispatch back, write down exactly what happened. But my notebook lies on the desk in the living room, unopened, its pages blank under a soft pool of lamplight. Minutes stretch into half an hour. I wrestle with every word, trying to pin down what to call it. A shooting, a suicide attempt, an assault on strangers by a wounded man. He wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He was looking for help. I think of the blood-slick mask, how he reached through its hollow grin, panic in his one eye as he begged for someone, anyone, to answer the door. I feel torn, relieved he didn't bleed out in that hallway, and ashamed that so many slammed their doors in his face. I climb off the bed and head to the desk. My boots stay where I dropped them. I pull the notebook toward me and crack it open on the first page. My pen hovers, nib trembling, as I write, Crestview Court Apartment. C. Welfare check turned GSW suicide attempt. Subject covered in his own blood. Requesting follow-up homicide investigator due to possible target. Subject may have been shot by self or another. Witnesses unavailable. Doors slammed. I pause. Witnesses unavailable sounds as if people simply walked away. But they slammed doors. They watched him bleed, but did nothing. I stop writing, close the notebook. Every word feels like a betrayal of his trust. He might be alive tonight because I came, because I saw the man instead of the monster. But I didn't see him soon enough. I could still smell his fear on my gloves, like burnt rubber mixed with iron. I stand, walk back to the hall. My wife's breathing is soft, rhythmic, unbroken. I envy her peace. I leave the lamp on again and slide under the covers, body rigid, staring at the ceiling. My phone vibrates on the nightstand. I ignore it. 10 minutes later, it buzzes again. Carter. Dispatch. I hit decline. Then another call. 911 call. Possible disturbance. Carter, you awake? I stare at the screen. It stops ringing. I close my eyes against the night of my mind, but sleep eludes me. At 3:06 a.m., I finally drift into a shallow doze, only to be jolted awake by the sound of breaking glass. My heart leaps into my throat. I bolt upright, sweat slick under my uniform shirt. The lamp is still on. I listen. Silence, except for the hum of the refrigerator downstairs, its fluorescent bulb flickering in time with my pulse. I slide out of bed, pad down the hall toward the living room. The front window's broken, a jagged hole in the glass, shards littering the floor. A faint breeze stirs the curtains. Leaves swirl around the porch light outside. I flick on the overhead, flood the room with light. The television is on, static hissing. The remote lies on the coffee table. Only the window is disturbed. No footprints on the hardwood. No sign of forced entry elsewhere. No footprints tracking in blood. But the pumpkin is gone. I should call precinct. I should call SWAT. But something drains the words from my mouth. I stare at the hole in the glass until the static on TV tears my attention away. There, in the flicker of snowstorm snow, he appears. For a second, I see him in the static field. Ragged coat, mask pressed to his face, one haggard eye looking directly into my television set. His form dissolves between picture frames, then vanishes. The static hums, and I feel that same primal shock of cold panic. I drop to my knees, rip the curtains closed, and jam the TV power button. Nothing. The set goes dark, leaving only the overhead light and the shattered window. I stand and press my boot against the broken glass, ready to clear it. Then stop. A crumpled scrap of paper lies in the middle of the living room rug. I pick it up. It's a Polaroid, the hallway at Crestview, the blood smear on the carpet, and in the center that monster mask on the floor, lens catching the flash into ghostly reflection. I flip it over, nothing written. The mask in my cruiser might have been taken from the dash. Someone followed me home. Or something. I shove the photo into my coat pocket, dust off slivers of glass from my fingers. My phone lights up again. I answer on speaker, voice taut. Carter. Dispatch crackles. Unit 107, disturbance call at Harper Heights. Loud banging, possible domestic. Patumudal mo patunri padil asayvudan. My insides flip. This is tonight's first call since midnight. No time to secure the house. No time to question reality. I slip on my boots, grab my jacket, and head for the door. I leave the curtains closed behind me, the Polaroid clutched in one hand, flashlight in the other. Outside, the night is still, too still. Leaves rest on the porch railing, dew glistening. I pause, scanning the yard. No sign of footprints, no sign of the mask or any intruder. But I feel watched. The radio hums in my jacket chest pocket. Carter, North Side, Harper Heights Building 7, domestic dispute. Contact with possible suicidal male, unarmed. The dispatcher's voice is calm, routine. My vision tunnels to the Polaroid. There, in grainy flash, is the mask, and behind it, in the inky hallway corner, the shape of a man starving for help. I slide into the patrol car once more. The engine roars to life as if relieved to be back in control. I tuck the Polaroid under my thigh, lean forward, headlights cutting into the night. 10-4, I say into the mic. I'm on my way. And as I pull away, I cannot shake the certainty that the mask, the blood, and the echo of that single eye have followed me, and will not let me rest until I face whatever hides behind its hollow grin. Sirens fade behind me as I merge onto Harper Heights Drive, tires humming over cracked asphalt. The streetlights cast halos in the mist, and the autumn air smells of damp wood and dying leaves. My pulse thumps in time with the wiper's slow sweep. No rain, just a fine haze that clings to the windshield. Dispatch's words echo in the cab. Possible domestic disturbance, unverified weapons, female screaming heard. Unit 107, respond code 3. Code 3 means lights and siren. I flick on the reds and blues and ease the car into gear, the cruiser bucking slightly under acceleration. There's no escaping the gravity of a domestic call. Every instinct screams that somewhere inside that house, someone's heart is racing harder than mine. I navigate the narrow cul-de-sac lined with cookie-cutter homes. White picket fences half collapsed. Front yards littered with overturned lawn furniture. A single porch light flickers on 23 Harper Heights. The house's siding is streaked with grime. Window blinds hang crooked. From inside comes a low, ragged sob, and the unmistakable clink of something metal. Maybe a pan dropped onto tile. I kill the siren just before I pull up to the curb and kill the engine, so only the cruiser's idle hum remains. My radio crackles. Unit 107 arrived. Proceed with caution. I grab my flashlight, taser at my side, and holstered pistol in my other hand, then step onto the leaf-strewn walkway. Each step announces itself with a soft crunch. The front door stands ajar, gap wide enough for a shadow to slide between frame and threshold. I pause, listening. The sobbing rises to a gasp, then an abrupt silence. I clear my throat, voice low and steady. Police! Please, sir or ma'am, if anyone's inside, step to the door with your hands visible. No reply. I slip inside, flashlight beam sewing a line of white through the gloom. The entryway's wallpaper peels in strips, curling like dead skin. A broken vase lies on the floor, petals crushed into the carpet. Behind me, the door clicks shut. Either my backdraft or someone else. I glance over my shoulder but see nothing. "Mrs. Holloway, it's Officer Carter. Are you okay?" I sweep the beam along the staircase. No motion. The living room is dark, the only illumination coming from a flickering television in the corner. Static hisses across the screen. Furniture is scattered, couch cushions ripped open, stuffing splayed like cotton spiderwebs. A coffee table is overturned, mugs shattered. I step lightly around a pool of dark liquid, bending to examine. Mud or something darker? My pulse hammers. I stand, drawing closer to the TV. The screen shifts to a paused home video. A young girl's birthday party, balloons and cake, laughter frozen mid-frame on their lips. Behind me, a soft footstep. I spin, pistol and flashlight rising in a practiced arc. Beam catching a figure at the hallway's end. A woman, mid-30s, bruised cheek already starting to swell, tear tracks still wet, leans against the wall, eyes wide as moths trapped in glass. Her blouse is torn at the shoulder, one sleeve missing. She stares at me, mouth slightly open as if to plead, but no sound comes. I lower my pistol but keep the beam fixed on her. "Ma'am, can you hear me? Are you hurt?" She blinks slowly, head tipping forward with exhaustion. She swallows, voice a rasp. He's upstairs." Behind her, the hallway stretches away, carpet mottled with footprints. Some bare, some in socked feet, some dragging. The stairs are carpeted, each step threadbare at the edges. I gesture for her to take a seat on the couch, then move toward the stairs. "Stay here. I'll be right back." She nods once, then slumps, pressing her palms to her mouth as quiet sobs escape. I ascend the staircase 2 steps at a time, light beam jostling across cracked plaster. At the top, the hallway branches left and right, each end swallowed in darkness. A door at the far end stands slightly open, warm light spilling through. I'm halfway across when I hear it, a metallic scrape, like a blade dragged against tile. My breath catches. I raise my taser in one hand, bullet belt pressing into my hips. Reaching the door, I pause, heart echoing dully in my ears. Through the gap, I see a figure crouched on the floor, back to me, blood pooling beneath. "Sir, come out with your hands up," I call. No movement. I press the flashlight beam through the opening, revealing a man in a wrinkled shirt, hands red, cradling something small and still. He sits beside a child's crib, head bowed. The mask is nowhere in sight. I step forward, weight shifting, light flicking over the man's posture. Shoulders hunched, head shaking side to side, as if murmuring to himself. He's not aware of me yet, lost in his private horror. I clear my throat. "Sir, police, let me see your hands." He jerks upright, spinning around. In his arms is the body of an infant, wrapped in a blood-soaked blanket. The child isn't crying, eyes closed, unmoving. The man's eyes, wide with terror, lock onto mine. His mouth works, but no sound emerges. He lifts a hand, and I see a small kitchen knife trembling between his fingers, blood smeared across the blade. My pulse spikes. This is no simple domestic disturbance, it's a nightmare made of flesh. "Drop the knife," I say, voice cold and firm. He raises the child closer, tucking the knife against his chest. Tears shimmer in his eyes and he croaks, voice raw. She wouldn't stop crying. His lip trembles. He raises his free hand, palm out like a plea. "Help me." Adrenaline surges. I tuck my pistol again, reach for my cuff keys. "Set the baby down," I order. He stumbles as if trying to move. The infant wriggles once, then goes still again. Every second stretches. Behind me, a soft creak. The hallway door at the top of the stairs closes. The woman on the couch screams, her cry cutting through wood and plaster. My head whips around. Down the hall, a tall silhouette blocks the light at the threshold of a dark room. He stands perfectly still, mask pressed to face, blood glistening on its twisted grin. In his hand, I suddenly see the Polaroid, my own photo, held between two long fingers. My heart surges, blood pounding in my temples. The father in front of me drops the infant onto the floor, the cloth thudding soft against the carpet. He lunges, dropping the knife with a clang, and presses his hands against his face, as if erasing the horror he's done. The crib's mobile swings gently, the soft tinkle of plastic shapes mocking the silence. The child lies motionless. I spin, flashlight slicing toward the masked figure. He doesn't move. I raise my voice. "Get out here, police!" There's no reply. My radio crackles faintly, static. Dispatch trying to reach me. I holster my taser, draw my pistol again, finger resting on the trigger. Time fractures. The man on the floor shakes, weeping. The child lies still. The masked silhouette stands framed in darkness, holding that photo. I take a step backward, tripping over the ladder to the attic hatch that leans against the wall. The hatch topples, clattering open to reveal a black crawl space above, breathing colder than the October night. The masked figure's head tilts. Then he takes one deliberate step forward, Polaroid extended toward me as if offering a twisted invitation. My voice cracks. "Who are you? What do you want?" Silence. The man on the floor sobs. "She's dead. You have to." He collapses, body sagging. I lower my pistol but keep my finger ready. I inch toward the masked stranger. Flashlight beam dances across the Polaroid once more. It's the same photo, yet now I see more. Behind the mask, at the far left edge, stands the silhouette of another body, half hidden in shadow. My breath hitches. I look at the father, at the limp child, and back to the photo. The masked man's grip tightens and he lifts the photo higher. I shout, "Put it down! Step away!" My voice echoes in the small room full of splintered toys and abandoned hope. He steps forward again, unwinding a low chuckle that rumbles through the hallway, a sound not quite human. A wind rushes through the open attic hatch, swirling through the room, tugging at my uniform. The father groans on the floor, and the child's blanket rustles. Just a breath. I risk one more step, pointing the flashlight at the attic opening. "Get out of my house!" I shout. The attic yawns wider, pitch black. The figure in the hatch seems deeper, endless. The masked man in the doorway pauses, head cocked. The Polaroid flutters as though caught in a current of cold air. Suddenly, the child stirs. One small hand twitches. I lunge forward, kicking the crumpled blanket away, heart slamming against ribs. The father scrambles to his knees, reaching for the baby with shaking arms. The masked man. No, that wasn't a man. He tilts his head, mask cracking like a smile, and steps slowly back into the attic, the hatch slamming shut behind him with a sickening finality. Darkness floods the room. The mobile's gentle tinkle is the only sound. I drop to my knees beside the crib, lifting the child to my chest. The father collapses beside me, hands on my shoulder, sobbing. Outside, blue and red lights flash on the windows as backup arrives at last. I cradle the infant, rocking gently, whispering what I hope are words of comfort. The storm outside subsides to silence, but inside, the echo of that mask and the vacant grin linger like smoke. I glance at the attic hatch. Now, just a simple panel in the ceiling. No sign of forcing, no trace of the stranger. The door bursts open and officers flood in, questions tumbling over each other. I hold the child close, voice hushed. "He's here. He was here. We thought we were alone." My words hang between us unanswered. The child's small heartbeat against my chest reminds me that even in madness, innocence persists. I stand, weight heavy with fear and relief, and step into the hallway. The father follows, eyes hollow. I glance at the couch in the living room, the broken vase, the static TV, and dread the stories this house will tell. As I guide the paramedics out with the infant, I know we've only scratched the surface. Something ancient and hungry roams these quiet streets, slipping through cracks in doors and attic hatches. Tonight, I saved one life, but I also invited something home with me, and it doesn't plan to leave. The ambulance door slamming shut echoes in the silent hallway as I guide the paramedics down the narrow corridor of Harper Heights Station. The baby's wail has been replaced by soft respirator hums. The father trails behind me, eyes bloodshot, shoulders trembling. I leave them in the emergency bay, kneel briefly beside the crib, brush loose hair from the infant's forehead, then step back into the harsh fluorescent light of the station's front lobby. At 2:14 a.m. on October 30th, the station is deserted. Desks sit abandoned under humming fluorescence. Coffee-stained mugs and half-eaten donuts left as if their occupants might return at any moment. I flick on my desk lamp, its warm glow cutting through the pallid overhead light. Dispatch has gone quiet. Only a few routine murmurs for noise complaints and parking violations. I hand my mask and glove-soaked evidence bag to the desk sergeant, who nods without looking up from her paperwork. I slump into my desk chair, the vinyl groaning as I lower my weight. The Polaroid from Crestview Court sits face down beside the phone, the smear of dried blood against the carpet, the discarded mask, now hinting at something more. I force myself not to look at it. My notebook lies open to the domestic call report, blank pages waiting. The telephone rings. I answer on speaker. "Carter," my voice cracks. "Lieutenant Hayes," the voice says, low and rough. "I got your message. Suicide attempt turned welfare check, turned homicide investigation." He sighs. "You find anything at Harper Heights?" I rub my temple. Infant was assaulted. Father had a knife, no prior record, claims he snapped. Mask, figure in attic, witness or apparition, we can't confirm. My words hang as I process. I need backup for Crestview follow-up. Something's off. On it, Detective Diaz will meet you there at first light. He clicks off before I can protest. I lean back, hands drifting over the Polaroid. I turn it over. The back is blank, no fingerprint, no note. I glance around the lobby, the vending machines asleep, monitors lined in a row, blinking green to show live feeds. One camera overlooks the station entrance, another watches the hallway to the holding cells. None point to my desk. I slip the Polaroid into my pocket and tug on a fresh pair of gloves. I grab my flashlight and taser, feeling its cool grip, and head toward the back exit. Outside, the October air is frigid, cold enough to burn lungs on the inhale. The station sits on a hill. From here I can see Crestview's lights in the distance, pinpricks against a blanket of trees. I jog to my cruiser, unlock the door with a fob, and slip inside. No sooner have I turned the key than the radio crackles. Unit 107, any traffic? I key the mic. "Carter here, I'm heading to Crestview for follow-up. ETA 10 minutes. The dispatcher's voice softens. 10-4, stay safe. I drive down Harper Heights Drive, past homes dark as tombstones, until I reach Main Road, then glide onto the 2-lane highway toward Pine Ridge. The road pitch dark, No streetlights save for the occasional passing car. My headlights cut through the mist, illuminating billboards advertising late-night diners and payday loans. The trees crowd the pavement's edge, skeletal branches scratching at the windshield. As I near Crestview Court, my stomach churns. The last time I left there, I saw the mask on my porch and the Polaroid in my coat. Now, I'm going back in daylight, but daylight feels no safer. I flick on the overhead lights in the cruiser and shake my head, blinking sweat from my eyes. The electric hum of the heater mingles with my ragged breaths. I park outside Building C, boots clopping on concrete. The sun is barely cresting the horizon, pale pink bleeding into gray clouds. I notice the smashed pumpkin still on the stoop, mask-shaped grin upturned in the dim dawn. I crouch, scoop it into a new evidence bag, then stand and punch the door code. 421B. The door clicks and swings open. No flickering bulbs tonight. Power's restored. The corridor's quiet, eerie in its normalcy. Detective Diaz arrives behind me, clipboard in hand. She's early 30s, sharp eyes, dark ponytail. "I got your call," she says. "Heard you had a situation." I nod, hand on my flashlight. "Subject's unstable. Masked figure appeared. Got this?" I pull out the Polaroid. Her brow furrows. "Looks like 3B's Hall, but..." She studies the image. "Wait, that smile doesn't belong. Look at the angle." Above us, the corridor light flickers. I sweep the beam across the floor. Faint streaks of brownish red, dried in the creases between tiles. Door 3B is ajar again. No fresh lock, no tape. I don't remember closing it last night. The doorknob creaks when I turn it. Inside, the room is empty. No blood pools, no overturned furniture, just the cracked linoleum and swirling dust motes in my beam. A faint aura of rot lingers. Old blood, old fear. I sweep the flashlight toward the bathroom, its door half open. I step inside. Tile floor pristine, towels neatly folded. Nothing. I back out slowly, heart thumping. I look at Diaz. Last night, he was here. I shove the Polaroid toward her face. But this room, no traces now. She lowers her clipboard. "A scheduled cleaning crew came through early," she says. "They said they found a bloody mask and photo on the stoop this morning. Thought it was a prank. Threw 'em away." I clamp my hand over my mouth to stifle a curse. The crew could have destroyed evidence. Mask, photos, blood samples, everything. The situation spins beyond protocol. I swallow. "Send a tow for the video feed," I say. "Somebody's been tampering." Diaz nods, already punching her phone. We split up. She heads to security office. I retrace my steps. I pass apartment 2A, window blinds drawn tight. No sight of the tenant who called. I knock, no answer. I move on to 1C, padlocked mailbox, no mail inside. I circle back to 3B, flashlight beam swinging. The door is now shut completely. Only a tiny gap shows nothing inside but darkness. I press my ear to the door. Nothing. I knock, twice. The door swings open under my hand, unchecked. Inside, I shine the light along the walls. Half the wallpaper is peeled away. Beneath it, scratch marks gouged into the plaster, long, ragged lines. One forms a shape. A crudely carved circle with spindles radiating out. A crude sun. A wheel. My stomach twists. The hair on my arms stands on end. Something about those scratches feels purposeful. I reach for the drywall, press my glove to the grooves. The plaster is rough, caked with dust, as if scraped recently. I drop to my knees and root around on the floor. Dust-covered bits of plaster and paint, not cleaned away, no blood, nothing except the gouges. I straighten and shout, "Diaz!" She appears in the doorway, breathless. "I got the footage," she says. Cameras show a silhouette, no features but tall, thin, entering 3B at 3:03 a.m., then it vanishes. She punches her tablet. No record of anyone leaving. I swallow hard. Meaning? She shrugs. Either the subject left via window or something slipped in and out without triggering sensors. I feel the air thicken. The sensors are fine. I whip out my radio. Dispatch. Run a maintenance check on corridor motion sensors and door alarms for Crestview Court Building C. Let me know if any went offline last night. I mute the mic. To Diaz. If anyone asks, we were here all night. No unaccounted exit. She gives me a tight nod. What about the carvings? I shine my light again, circling the scratches. They weren't here last night, I say. Must have been done early this morning. Why carve a symbol? Diaz crouches to photograph the markings. I glance around, uneasy. The corridor's length stretches out past me, emptier than before. A single-floor tile at the far end is loose, its corner lifted like a page turned. I note it in my mind. The floor's never consistent. A maintenance crew did a partial repair months back, but I recall the tile being flush. Lead the way, I tell Diaz. We head down the hall, flashlight sweeping the ground. At the stairwell, the door is locked, deadbolt engaged. I unlock it, push inside. Light from the stairwell's window casts a pale rectangle on the floor. I step in, heart pounding as each stair creaks beneath me. The mask was last seen here, in the attic above the apartments. Did the silhouette return? Did the mask vanish only to reappear on my porch? My breath puffs in the cold air as I reach the top landing. The attic hatch, now sealed with a metal plate and screws, looms above. It's been bolted from below, but in the footage the hatch is ajar, swinging like a breath. I snap on gloves, pull out my multi-tool, and begin removing screws. Diaz leans back, shining her taser-mounted light up, paint flaking onto her hair. The final screw pops free. I lower the hatch carefully and push it upward. A thin shaft of dawn light splits the dusty air. The attic is a crawl space, low beams, insulation sagging. I squeeze through, crawling on hands and knees, my flashlight grazing discarded cardboard boxes, clumps of rodent droppings, torn insulation. The smell is nauseating, old decay and new fear. I hear a faint ticking, metal on metal. I shine the beam around. A row of empty blow-molded pumpkin buckets, like discarded skulls, line one wall. Next to them, a flickering lantern half buried in stuffing. I shuffle closer. Ticks grow louder. It's coming from a wooden crate in the far corner, bound with rope. I kneel, brush away debris, and feel with my glove-covered hand. The crate vibrates, emitting sharp clicks every 2 seconds. Like clockwork. My heart hammers. I holster my taser, draw my pistol. Diaz, back up, I whisper. She inches away, eyes fixed on the beam. I reach out, pry at the lid. Inside, nothing but empty packaging peanuts and an old police badge. No nameplate, but still crisp metal, sitting atop a blood-stained sheet of notepaper. I pull them out, flipping the paper over. A single line scrawled in red ink. I see you. My breath catches. The badge is generic. A training issue backup from the academy. It's mine, or was mine, burnished with my badge number. I grip it tight, heart racing. A soft sigh echoes behind me. I spin, and the attic hatch slams shut, plunging me into darkness. I slam the pistol butt against the hatch until it rattles open again. Diaz stumbles in, beam slicing through. I hold up the badge and paper. Her face goes pale. Someone's been here, watching us, I say. My voice trembles. This was set up. She swallows, voice soft. What do we do now? I pocket the badge, tuck the note into my coat. We get out, I whisper. We secure the scene and call this in. And then we pray we're not next. We crawl back, seal the hatch as best we can, and descend. Outside, I pause under the morning sky, cold air burning my lungs. Crestview Court looms silent. I shine my flashlight on the wreath of pumpkins around the entryway. Each one empty now, as if drained of all but malice. I turn to Diaz. We don't have time. There's more to this. Other locations, other victims. I lift my radio. Dispatch, Unit 107. We're initiating a full search on all properties within a 10-mile radius for similar tampering in symbols. Tactical team requested. She nods, pulling out her phone. I let the radio go silent again, heart thudding. The radio chatter in the cruiser is a low murmur as Detective Diaz and I pull away from Crestview Court. The morning's first rush hour hums to life around us. Commuters nodding through amber lights, delivery trucks groaning past curbside mailboxes, joggers slaloming around potholes. Yet, inside the steel cage of my patrol car, the air is heavy with something colder than dawn. I clear my throat, voice tight. We need a full crime scene reconstruction on all these sites: Crestview, Harper Heights, the Smith Place, and any other call that involved masks, suicides, domestic distress, or random blood splatters. Cross-reference missing person reports, medical examiner calls, 911 transcripts. I want anything with the symbol carved into it. Diaz types on her tablet, brow furrowed. I'll alert evidence. We'll pull dashcam and bodycam footage, statements, 911 audio. She glances at me. You think someone's linking these incidents deliberately? I don't answer at first, watching traffic swirl past. Lanes converge, wheels spin. Not think, I say finally. No, or at least suspect. Will you call Lieutenant Hayes and get a full task force assigned? I don't trust this to just one precinct. She nods, tapping the dispatcher channel. On it. She switches to my channel. Carter, dispatch. Initiate multi-agency task force for possible serial incident pattern. Units in CID, homicide, behavioral analysis notified. I settle back against the seat, gaze drifting to the empty passenger side. The Polaroid photo of the smeared hallway mask sits in my coat pocket, warm from my breath. I feel its corners pressing, as if something inside it still waits to spring out. I say nothing as we drive, letting Diaz coordinate. An hour later, I'm in the precinct's briefing room, pale fluorescent lights blinking overhead. Around the long table sit representatives from CID, forensics, dispatch, and uniformed patrol. On the wall, maps are tacked, and red pushpins mark each incident location in the past week. Crestview Court, Harper Heights Drive, the Smith residence on Miller Road, a welfare check in Edgewood. Overhead, projector throws the map into orange light. Lieutenant Hayes stands at the head of the table, arms crossed. Thanks for the quick response, Carter. We've got patterns we can't ignore. All victims reported seeing the mask or the symbol or both. Some described the perpetrator as a shadow wearing the mask. Medical examiner flagged the domestic call baby as assaulted but recovering. No official homicide yet. He points to the map. Someone's staging these scenes, planting symbols, leaving evidence, ping-ponging between tragedies. We need behavioral analysis on what this means. Carter, you and Diaz will lead the field investigation. I nod, throat dry. Understood, sir. I'll coordinate detectives to re-interview witnesses, anyone at those sites, and seal off new locations for a quick sweep. Hayes flicks to the next slide. A close-up of the carved circle and spokes, the symbol from the hallway wall. This symbol was also found carved into the bark of 3 trees near Pine Ridge Cemetery, he says, voice low. We have surveillance confirming a silhouette there last night around 1 a.m. No mask visible, but the shape matches. A forensic artist sits up. Can I get more detail on the symbol? We'll try reconstructing a face mask design from the grooves. She taps notes. All our mask fragments were identical rubber. Looks like a generic Halloween mask at first, but test prints show custom modification. The eye holes were widened, the grin scraped jagged. I interject. That mask was recovered on my porch after Crestview, gone by dawn. When Diaz's crew cleaned it up, they thought it was debris. It's likely back in circulation, moved to the next site. Hayes exhales. We're dealing with someone organized, ritualistic maybe. He, or they, want us to find these clues in sequence. Each site bleeds into the next. After the briefing, I return to my desk in the dispatch wing. The evidence locker sits beyond a keypad door. Inside, the collection of masks, photos, knife, doll, pamphlets, bits of clothing. Everything gathered. I swipe my badge, door buzzes, enter. Diaz is already there, gloves on, bagging items in numbered evidence envelopes. She looks up. The Polaroid you found? This one? She holds a fresh print. A dim hallway shot like the others, but across the floor is scrawled that same circle and spokes, etched onto the floorboards themselves. She shakes her head. I swallow. Good catch. That means they're escalating, defacing the very scenes themselves. I take a rag, wipe my palm on my jacket. What about the pumpkin buckets from the attic? Diaz lays out 2 plastic jack-o'-lanterns, cracked at the base, each bearing shallow cuts matching the symbol. They're in pairs now. One at Crestview, one at Harper Heights, 2 here. Patterns doubling with each site. She steps back. This is going somewhere. I nod, staring at the lineup. I unclip a small recorder from my belt and press it. Officer Carter, statement. Evidence from 4 sites shows increasing symbolism and propagation. Recommend tactical surveillance of any Halloween decorations in nearby homes. Next target likely to involve both mask and symbol, perhaps with a focus on a 3rd level, something vertical, like an attic, chimney, or rooftop. Diaz thumbs the recorder off. Agreed. Let's focus on holiday decorations. People decorate porches, yards, rooftops. Something about that stack of pumpkin buckets in the attic. They left them there intentionally. We need to watch. I rub my eyes. The day stretches like a long exhaust pipe. Hours later, Uniform Patrol calls me. At 1415 Parkview Lane, a caller reports hearing pounding and muffled screaming in the attic. I grab my gear, flashlight, radio, pistol, and head out with Diaz in her cruiser. The house at Parkview is a faded Victorian with a wraparound porch, and already scene tape up. Neighbors gawk from sidewalks pointing. A young officer waves me over. Sergeant Carter, same story. Screams, scratching above, then silence. I nod, head toward the attic hatch in the dining room, same style as Crestview. It's been screwed shut again, but the screws are fresh. I grab the multi-tool, open it. Diaz shines her light. I climb the ladder into the dusty crawl space. Overhead, insulation clings like cobwebs. The beam lands on dozens of pumpkin buckets lining a wooden beam like sacrificial bowls. Each bucket has the carved symbol around its rim, and inside each sits a small crumpled Polaroid, scenes from earlier sites. I pocket one, heart thudding. I crawl forward. The beam skims across scratched words on the joist above. You came. My breath hitches. I spin, coming face to face with the masked silhouette, arms folded, that same rubber face cracked into a sinister grin. It tilts its head, body so still I think it's a statue. Its one visible eye hole peers at me. Just darkness. The attic hatch slams shut below us, cutting off escape. Diaz fires her taser. The silhouette doesn't flinch. The beam slickers across its chest. No sign of clothing, just mask and shadow. A tiny voice crackles on my radio, dispatching other units for backup. The silhouette bends, plucks a pumpkin bucket from the beam, and hurls it at me. It crashes at my feet, plastic shards scattering. The Polaroids inside flutter out like black butterflies. I lunge forward, gun drawn, but my boot tangles in insulation and I slam to one knee. Diaz yanks the hatch open, shining at the ceiling. The fire escape ladder outside. She reaches down, grabs my arm. "Come on!" I yank myself up, teeth gritting. We tumble down, slam the hatch shut. We sprint through the house, out the front door, slam it locked behind us. The silhouette is gone. No mask, no shadow waiting on the porch. In its place, the front steps are littered with pumpkin bucket fragments and Polaroids. I scoop one off the porch. It shows my own living room, captured moments ago through the interior window. On the couch is a single orange pumpkin bucket, cratered and broken. Next to it, written in red, the symbol. My breath shudders. Diaz looks at me, eyes wide. "We need to go back in," she whispers. "We need to..." I hold up my hand. "Number." We call every unit back to precinct. Seal off all houses, windows, doors. We trap whoever's doing this. She nods, voice tight. "All right, but what do we do with the evidence piles in every attic?" I shake my head, tone exhausted. "Gather what we can, but leave the rest. It's a lure. They want us to come back inside. We can't. Not tonight." Back in the cruiser, sirens behind us multiply as reinforcements arrive. We cruise Parkview Lane, searching front porches, backyards, attics, but the mask and symbol have vanished again, along with any sign of forced entry or trespass. It's like chasing ghosts through straw. We return to the station in a haze. The evidence room is locked down, and I stand before the walls of photos, the masks, the symbols, and a new map peppered with tar paper markers. Every house in the county that had even a Halloween decoration. Now, each mark is gunned in blood red. The task force has mobilized. SWAT teams girded, behavioral analysis drafting profiles, forensics combing for prints amid plastic shards. My phone vibrates. A text from home. "Door locked. All good here. Love you." I stare at the message, hand trembling. I slip my badge out and place it on the table among the horrors. The letters engraved on it catch overhead light. 107. My unit, my identity. I hear footsteps, Diaz slipping in behind me. "Report's done. Everyone's on alert. Next, full moons in 10 days. Halloween weekend. They've got a stage set." I draw a ragged breath. Ritualistic timeline. 10 days to plan the finale. They want a grand closing act. Something public. Terrifying enough to draw cameras, witnesses, blood. She swallows. "We need a plan." I look down at my badge, then up at the wall of faces and maps. "We stop them," I say, voice brittle. "We find the pattern, break the cycle, or we all become actors in their finale." She nods. "And after we stop them, how do we live in this world again?" I close my eyes, feeling the weight of every peeling symbol, every shattered mask, every haunted attic, and the father we barely saved, the baby whose screams still echo in my chest. My life, my badge, this entire county. It's all been turned into their stage. I open my eyes. "We'll figure it out," I promise, though I don't know if I believe it. I gather my badge, my gun, my flashlight. Let's go find our monster before it finds us. And as I step out into the corridor, lights flickering like a dying heartbeat, I can almost hear faint scratching. Somewhere, just beyond the walls, the circle and spokes being carved again. The finale is coming, and no door will keep it out. What will be left when the mask falls and the lights go dark? I don't have the answer, but I can't stop knocking on every door until I find it. I flipped the mic switch on my body cam as I rounded the bend in County Road 17. The rain had eased to a steady drizzle, slicking the asphalt under my tires, and the glow of my headlights cut through the gloom in narrow arcs. Dispatch had sent the address 10 minutes ago, 482 Miller's Hollow Lane. A welfare check on a 90-year-old woman, Mrs. Eleanor Langdon, last heard from 2 weeks past. I glanced over at Officer Martinez, tapping his fingers on the steering wheel. He gave me a curt nod. No one spoke much on these calls. You roll in, check the scene, and roll back out. Standard procedure until it isn't. We parked side by side on the gravel driveway, engine idling low. The house sat off to our right, a 2-story clapboard relic, its paint peeling like sun-baked skin. The porch sagged on one side, boards warped and blackened with age and moisture. A single porch light flickered, casting long, twitching shadows across the overgrown lawn. 8 ceramic bowls sat empty along the railing. Cat dishes, I guessed. I felt a twinge of unease. Solitary elders, cats everywhere. Sometimes a symptom of loneliness, sometimes of something darker. I grabbed my flashlight and radio mic, lifting the beam to the front door. The drizzle had washed footprints in the mud. A single set leading to the threshold, then none. Langdon check, I announced softly. No response. We'll need fire rescue and breathing gear. I switched off the mic and rapped my fist on the splintered wood. No answer. Martinez stepped up behind me, handgun holstered but hand resting on the grip, more habit than expectation. The door swung inward on rusty hinges. The smell hit first, like rotten meat marinated in sour milk. My breath caught. Martinez gave a quick wave, and we moved inside together. The foyer light above flickered chaotically. I kept my beam trained on the walls, the scratched grooves where a cane might have scraped, the framed photographs skewed askew, family snapshots from decades ago, faces smiling into another age. My pulse kicked up. I tried to steady it with measured breaths. We followed the hallway toward the kitchen. Every step echoed on warped floorboards. The bowls outside had been empty. Inside, bowls littered the floor, overturned. One cat dish still held a sliver of something unrecognizable. I stepped over it, flashlight sliding across a splatter of dark red on the wall, too dark to be jam. Martinez's jaw tightened, and I could hear his shallow inhale. "Let's get this cleared," he murmured. I raised my radio mic, voice clipped. "Rescue en route. Code 3, request for hazmat and breathing apparatus. Staticky dispatch confirmed. We had at least 5 minutes, long enough for this place to unmake you." As that thought crossed my mind, a soft mewling drifted from the next room. I signaled Martinez and edged past the kitchen doorway. 4 cats crouched low around a twisted shape on the linoleum. My stomach turned. The beam revealed pale flesh and gray, matted hair. I swallowed hard, hand clamping over my mouth. The cats moved in synchronized hunger, gnawing at the remains. The body slumped half on the stove hearth, half on the threadbare rug. Eyes clouded, one hand curled in eternal surprise. I forced myself to step back. My training kicked in, document the scene, maintain distance, don gloves. But reflexes failed. The world narrowed to the low, urgent rhythm of feline jaws. I pressed my palm to the doorframe, breath rasping. "Martinez," I croaked. They're eating her." He was beside me in a flash, flashlight joining mine. He swallowed, voice quiet. Jesus Christ. Then his radio buzzed. I used my shoulder to steady myself and hailed dispatch again. "Subject down, multiple animal involvement. Scene contaminated. Stand by for fire rescue. Distant sirens flickered into the night, growing louder. Time warped. The cats scattered when the first firefighter in breathing gear kicked the door open. They slipped into broken shadows, vanishing like wraiths. The crew moved in disciplined formation. Hoses, cameras, evidence markers. I hovered at the threshold, noting every detail for my report. The tiles cracked by force, the bowl overturned at 45 degrees, the handle of her mug still warm, but every fact blurred behind the imprint of her face. They hoisted her onto a stretcher, wrapping her in a sheet. I caught a glimpse of her eyes, opaque, fixed on some distant horizon. One firefighter jammed a camera into the corner, capturing over a dozen angles. Then the horror of the living room. More bowls, more stains. They'd spread beyond the kitchen. I followed them, flashlight tracing arcs over shredded newspapers, a toppled rocking chair, and dozens of stray hairs caught in spiders' webs. When the last of her body was gone, we turned toward the front door. I stepped out onto the porch, air cold against my skin. The wooden boards creaked under my boots. The rain had... I flipped the mic switch on my body cam as I rounded the bend in County Road 17. The rain had eased to a steady drizzle, slicking the asphalt under my tires, and the glow of my headlights cut through the gloom in narrow arcs. Dispatch had sent the address 10 minutes ago, 482 Miller's Hollow Lane. A welfare check on a 90-year-old woman, Mrs. Eleanor Langdon, last heard from 2 weeks past. I glanced over at Officer Martinez, tapping his fingers on the steering wheel. He gave me a curt nod. No one spoke much on these calls. You roll in, check the scene, and roll back out. Standard procedure until it isn't. We parked side by side on the gravel driveway, engine idling low. The house sat off to our right, a 2-story clapboard relic, its paint peeling like sun-baked skin. The porch sagged on one side, boards warped and blackened with age and moisture. A single porch light flickered, casting long, twitching shadows across the overgrown lawn. 8 ceramic bowls sat empty along the railing, cat dishes, I guessed. I felt a twinge of unease, solitary elders, cats everywhere. Sometimes a symptom of loneliness, sometimes of something darker. I grabbed my flashlight and radio mic, lifting the beam to the front door. The drizzle had washed footprints in the mud. A single set leading to the threshold, then none. Langdon check, I announced softly. No response. We'll need fire rescue and breathing gear. I switched off the mic and rapped my fist on the splintered wood. No answer. Martinez stepped up behind me, handgun holstered but hand resting on the grip, more habit than expectation. The door swung inward on rusty hinges. The smell hit first, like rotten meat marinated in sour milk. My breath caught. Martinez gave a quick wave, and we moved inside together. The foyer light above flickered chaotically. I kept my beam trained on the walls, the scratched grooves where a cane might have scraped, the framed photographs skewed askew, family snapshots from decades ago, faces smiling into another age. My pulse kicked up. I tried to steady it with measured breaths. We followed the hallway toward the kitchen. Every step echoed on warped floorboards. The bowls outside had been empty. Inside, bowls littered the floor, overturned. One cat dish still held a sliver of something unrecognizable. I stepped over it, flashlight sliding across a splatter of dark red on the wall, too dark to be jam. Martinez's jaw tightened, and I could hear his shallow inhale. "Let's get this cleared," he murmured. I raised my radio mic, voice clipped. "Rescue en route. Code 3, request for hazmat and breathing apparatus. Staticky dispatch confirmed." We had at least 5 minutes, long enough for this place to unmake you. As that thought crossed my mind, a soft mewling drifted from the next room. I signaled Martinez and edged past the kitchen doorway. 4 cats crouched low around a twisted shape on the linoleum. My stomach turned. The beam revealed pale flesh and gray, matted hair. I swallowed hard, hand clamping over my mouth. The cats moved in synchronized hunger, gnawing at the remains. The body slumped half on the stove hearth, half on the threadbare rug. Eyes clouded, one hand curled in eternal surprise. I forced myself to step back. My training kicked in, document the scene, maintain distance, don gloves. But reflexes failed. The world narrowed to the low, urgent rhythm of feline jaws. I pressed my palm to the doorframe, breath rasping. "Martinez," I croaked. They're eating her." He was beside me in a flash, flashlight joining mine. He swallowed, voice quiet. Jesus Christ. Then his radio buzzed. I used my shoulder to steady myself and hailed dispatch again. "Subject down, multiple animal involvement. Scene contaminated. Stand by for fire rescue." Distant sirens flickered into the night, growing louder. Time warped. The cats scattered when the first firefighter in breathing gear kicked the door open. They slipped into broken shadows, vanishing like wraiths. The crew moved in disciplined formation. Hoses, cameras, evidence markers. I hovered at the threshold, noting every detail for my report. The tiles cracked by force, the bowl overturned at 45 degrees, the handle of her mug still warm. But every fact blurred behind the imprint of her face. They hoisted her onto a stretcher, wrapping her in a sheet. I caught a glimpse of her eyes, opaque, fixed on some distant horizon. One firefighter jammed a camera into the corner, capturing over a dozen angles. Then the horror of the living room. More bowls, more stains. They'd spread beyond the kitchen. I followed them, flashlight tracing arcs over shredded newspapers, a toppled rocking chair, and dozens of stray hairs caught in spiders' webs. When the last of her body was gone, we turned toward the front door. I stepped out onto the porch, air cold against my skin. The wooden boards creaked under my boots. The rain had slowed to a whisper, the night returning to silence. Martinez closed the door behind him with a heavy thud. We stood there, neither speaking, until the kitten appeared. It was the smallest of the lot. Gray fur streaked with white, eyes wide and unblinking. It padded toward us, tail flicking doubtfully. I knelt, heart pounding, as it stopped a foot away, head tilting. My gloved hand hovered, reluctant. That single kitten, emaciated, trembling, lifted its muzzle and let out a soft mew. I could feel its ribs beneath its coat. Above us, the porch light stuttered and died. Darkness pooled at the edge of the driveway. I reached for the kitten, cradling it against my chest. Its heartbeat hammered, tiny and frantic. Radio static spat. A new dispatch, a suspicious noise at the Cedar Grove substation. I straightened, water dripping from my hood. I tucked the kitten into my jacket pocket. "Let's go," I murmured. Moments later, back in the cruiser, I glanced at the rearview mirror. Nothing. The kitten lay still beneath the dashboard light, eyes closed. My knuckles whitened on the wheel. The heater sputtered as if on its last breath. The road stretched ahead, deserted except for the faint glow of distant street lamps. My radio crackled again, no direct orders, just the hum of night shift monotony. I pulled out onto the county road, the tires humming on wet pavement, heart sinking. And then, from the dark corner of the passenger seat, a whisper of movement. I stole another glance. The kitten's head was turned, eyes open and fixed on me. In the glass of the mirror, I thought I saw a shiver ripple across its spine, as if it recognized me, as if it had been waiting. I flicked on the dome light, empty. The kitten's spot was vacant. I checked the pocket, still there. My breath came sharp. I switched off the light, eyes flicking to the mirror once more. Nothing. Yet every instinct in my gut screamed that I was no longer alone. I eased the cruiser to a halt in front of the Cedar Grove substation, headlights slicing through the mist that draped low over the asphalt. My siren had been off, but the red and blue strobes still cast shifting patterns across the damp brick facade. I killed the engine and reached for the mic switch on my lapel, voice low but clipped. "Dispatch, this is Unit 24. We're arriving at the substation for that suspicious noise call." Static hissed back in acknowledgement. I opened my door into the chill air. The rain had paused, leaving everything slick and silent. Martinez was already out, flashlight in hand, eyes scanning the perimeter fence. Overhead, a single neon bulb buzzed and flickered above the main door, giving off a sickly, pale yellow glow. The rest of the yard was pitch black, trees crowding in like silent sentinels. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears, the cold pressing at my collarbone as if the night itself was testing me. "Anything?" I whispered. He shook his head. "Nothing yet." We approached the building together, boots squelching on wet gravel. I thought about the kitten tucked against my chest under my coat, its warmth a faint pulse against my hip. It hadn't moved since I put it in there. I wasn't sure if it was alive or stunned by the chaos of the last scene. A dim glow from the side window suggested someone inside, or maybe just a faulty light. I checked my sidearm, thumb resting on the safety. In a tense, murmured tone, "Martinez, take the left flank," I said quietly. "I'll cover the entrance." He nodded without looking at me, slipping around the corner of the building. I pressed my ear to the metal door, listening. Nothing but the ongoing hum of the neon bulb and my own ragged breathing. Then, soft, almost imperceptible, a scratching from inside. Fingernails against metal. My breath caught. My hand tightened on my flashlight, thumb hovering near the mic. "Dispatch," I began, voice steady. "We've got movement inside. Could be an intruder or animal. Stand by." No sooner had the word left my mouth than the door handle turned under my hand. I ducked back, heart hammering, raising the light as the door creaked open. A figure lurched out, hunched, dripping wet. It looked human, clothes soaked, face hidden under a hood. I barked, "Police, freeze." It froze for a heartbeat, then bolted past me into the darkness. I lunged, slamming the door all the way open, flashlight sweeping the interior. The substation lobby was small, linoleum floor stained with muddy footprints, bulletin boards on the walls plastered with missing person flyers, half torn and curling at the edges. A wrought iron partition separated the lobby from the back offices. The glass panels were smeared with water drips, distorting the fluorescent lights inside. "Martinez," I called. "I need backup. Suspect fleeing." He emerged from the shadows, gun drawn, surveying the area. We moved in unison, methodical, side by side down the narrow hallway that led deeper into the building. The scratching noise had stopped, replaced by a low humming, like electricity arcing. I passed the supply closet where animal control kept cages. The door was ajar, hinges clicking faintly. I paused, flashlight beam revealing loose fur caught on the latch. A cold knot formed in my stomach. "Could be the kitten," I said under my breath. Martinez shook his head. "Don't let it distract you." We rounded a corner into the main communications room. Banked desks held old dispatch consoles, headsets dangling onto keyboards, monitors cracked or dark. A single terminal glowed with life. The screen displayed a live feed from one of the security cameras outside. Rain whipped the lens as the camera swept the perimeter, catching flashes of white fur moving just beyond the fence. I froze. White fur. The kitten? Impossible. I inched closer to the monitor. The camera panned left. Two small shapes slipped past the fence line. One gray, one white. My pulse raced. What the hell? I muttered. A static crackle garbled over the console speakers. A voice, far away, almost childlike, whispered, "Let me in." I stumbled back, hand clamping over my mouth. Martinez slapped my shoulder. "What did you hear?" I shook my head, eyes locked on the ghostly shapes on the screen. Someone, or something, is out there. Before he could answer, a crashing sound echoed from the storage room behind us. We spun, flashlights converging on the half-open door. Something heavy dragged across the floor. My radio mic squealed as I pressed the button. "Officers down, possible perp inside." Martinez kicked the door open. I followed, weapon raised. Inside, rows of empty metal shelves lined the walls, paint chipping in the fluorescent glare. In the center of the room lay a service cart overturned. Contents spilled. Rusted tools, rolls of tape, cardboard boxes, and in the back corner, huddled, eyes reflecting our beams, was the gray and white kitten, fur matted, chest heaving. It let out a keening mewl, sounding almost human in the echo. I holstered my gun, heart thundering with confusion. The kitten's tiny body pulsed with the same frantic energy I'd felt inside the house at Miller's Hollow. I stepped forward, hand extended. It didn't retreat. Instead, it crawled into my palm, curling against my glove. "Why the hell are you here?" I murmured. Martinez stood at the threshold. "Forget pursuit," he said. "We should secure the scene. Someone, or something, is using these buildings." I nodded, still staring at the kitten. On its white fur was a smear of something dark, like dried blood. I flicked on my headlamp and brushed at it. No reaction. "Secure the perimeter," I directed. "Call animal control." Then I marched toward the console to cut the live feed. The screen went black with a final hiss. My breath shook as I turned back. Martinez was already on the phone in the hallway, voice low. Moments later, the substation was buzzing with activity. Uniformed deputies, animal control officers, fire marshals in hazmat suits leaning in to inspect the scratch marks on the closet door, the overturned cart, the bullet holes drilled into the twinned locks on the supply closet. I stepped aside, pulling the kitten out of my jacket pocket and cradling it gently. Motioning Martinez over, I said softly, "Listen, there's something wrong here. That kitten, it wasn't just following me. It's been moving through every place I've been tonight." He frowned, eyes narrowing. "You think..." "What? That it's stalking you?" I shrugged, voice tight. "I don't know what to think, but look at this." I tilted my hand and pointed. At the base of its tail was a small wound, like a puncture, but no blood. Not a fresh wound, more like it was burned or etched, glowing faintly under the headlamp. Martinez leaned in, mouth open. That's not possible." I rubbed at my temple, mind racing. "Dispatch, this is Unit 24. We need a ride back to Miller's Hollow. We're calling this a priority run." By the time we piled back into the cruiser, the rain had resumed in earnest, beads on the windshield spattering under the wipers. The kitten was silent now, eyes closed as it curled against my chest again. The fluorescent pain in my head had eased, replaced by an ache of dread. I pulled out onto the damp road, headlights carving arcs ahead, turning onto County Road 17, the same stretch I'd come down hours ago. My radio was dead silent, save for the static sighs between channels. "Martinez," I said, voice low and urgent. "Whatever this is, it's not over." It followed me from that farmhouse. It followed me here and now. I exhaled hard. Now, I'm not sure I can protect anyone else. He glanced at me in the mirror, eyes sharp. You think it's linked to Mrs. Langdon? I nodded, heart pounding. Everything ties back to her death. Something in that house, something the cats found, and maybe this kitten, brought it with me. A flash of lightning split the sky, illuminating the cabin of the cruiser. In that instant, I thought I saw dozens of tiny feline shapes bounding across the fields on either side, shadows dancing just beyond the tree line. My headlamp flickered. The kitten stirred, lifting its head and letting out a low, mournful mew that echoed off the wet glass. Ahead, the faint outlines of Miller's Hollow Lane appeared, the glow of the farmhouse at the end barely visible through the downpour. My pulse hammered. I flicked on the mic. Dispatch, ETA 2 minutes. Prepare to secure a second scene. The kitten's eyes met mine, wide, ancient, somehow knowing. A single drop of rain slid across the windshield, blurring the world outside. And for a heartbeat, I wondered if any of this was real, or if I'd crossed a line into something I could never undo. I pressed the accelerator, tires spitting water, the roar of the engine merging with the kitten's soft whimper. The house loomed into view, windows shuttered, shadows shifting inside. In the silence that followed, I raised my flashlight, hand trembling. The kitten nestled in my palm, tail twitching. "Here we go," I whispered. And as we drew closer, its eyes glowed in the beam. 2 pale slits that reflected something hungry, something waiting. The cruiser's tires hissed to a stop on the slick gravel driveway as the farmhouse's dark silhouette loomed ahead. Rain lashed the windshield in a steady drumbeat, and my chest tightened at the familiar thrum of my own heartbeat. The kitten stirred in my jacket pocket, its tiny form pressing insistently against my hip. I killed the engine, cut the headlights, and for a moment the cabin was swallowed by silence, broken only by the soft mew of the kitten and the distant rumble of thunder. I unzipped my coat just enough to cup its head in my gloved hand, feeling its rapid pulse. "You ready for this?" I whispered, more to steady my own nerves than to address the kitten. Its bright eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the dim halo of my flashlight. I slipped the beam across the driveway toward the front door. The same battered boards I'd kicked open hours ago, now darkened by rain and shadow. Beside me, Martinez clipped his flashlight to his vest and nodded. We moved in lockstep onto the porch, boots crunching on the warped wood. The air inside the house carried that same sickening sweetness, decay and damp, seeping through the frame. I raised my flashlight to the doorframe and took a slow breath. "On 3, I murmured. He braced the door. I counted down under my breath and rammed it inward. The door shuddered, then swung wide. Inside, the hallway was transformed. More bowls, more stains, shards of broken china scattered across the floor. The walls bore fresh scrapes, as though something had clawed its way out of the living room toward the kitchen. My beam caught the glossy tracks. Little prints too small for a human, yet too precise for mere animal paws. I swallowed, stomach twisting, and advanced. Martinez swept the beam side to side, but his face remained impassive, professional training overriding the obvious horror. We reached the living room but paused at the threshold. The long couch was overturned, cushions slashed open, stuffing strewn like clouds of cotton. The fireplace hearth was slick with a dark fluid, and in its center lay a single, burnt matchstick. I frowned. Matches had no business here. Whoever or whatever had been inside had tried to light something. A ritual, maybe? My grip tightened on my flashlight. "Check upstairs," I ordered softly. "See if there's any signs." Martinez angled a thumb toward the staircase. "Got it." he ascended, each step groaning beneath his weight. I lingered in the parlor, beam searching corners. That matchstick nagged at me. I knelt, eyeing it. The head was charred, but the wood intact, snapped roughly at mid-shaft. I slid it into an evidence bag, my gloved fingers trembling. Above me, I heard Martinez's voice, clipped and urgent. "Bathroom, ground level. Gonna need you." I climbed the stairs 2 at a time, adrenaline spiking. He stood under the bathroom's flickering light, shining his beam on the bathtub. The porcelain was cracked, water pooled around the drain, but something dark floated on the surface. I knelt beside him. Hair, coarse and gray, drifted on the water in clumps. Not feline hair, thicker, wiry. I gagged. "Someone dragged hair up here," I muttered, glancing at the wall. Scratches gouged deep into the plaster, long, deliberate strokes. Martinez crouched and ran a finger along one. "Not animals," he said grimly. "This is someone or something big." A distant crack of thunder rattled the windows. I pressed my back to the door jamb, scanning the hallway below. "Dispatch, Unit 24. Update, structure compromised. We found possible forced entry upstairs. Hair in tub, new claw marks, need hazmat and backup, again." My voice came out steadier than I felt. He half smiled. "At this point, I think we might need the National Guard." I offered a terse nod and headed back down. The kitten's meowing echoed faintly from my jacket. I reached in and nuzzled its head. It blinked at me, whiskers damp. I lifted it out and held it in front of my chest. Its fur was now stained with streaks of something reddish-brown. No fresh blood, but crusted residue that resisted my wiping. I turned its head to inspect its eyes. Pupils dilated, yet its gaze seemed fixed on a point behind me. I followed its line of sight into the darkened hallway leading to the parlor. "Something moved," I said. Martinez pivoted. Before either of us could react, the front door slammed shut with a deafening crack, echoing through the house like a gunshot. My flashlight beam jerked toward it. Rainwater spattered into the foyer from the broken threshold. Martinez sprinted for the door. I dashed to intercept him. He yanked at the knob. It held fast. "We're locked in," he growled. I kicked at the door, once. Then again, it didn't budge. My breath came in twisted gasps as I backed away. A low rumble rumbled through the floorboards like distant machinery powered by unseen hands. At that instant, every light in the house cut out. Total darkness swallowed us, so complete I could feel the weight of it pressing in my ears. I fumbled for my torch, finally flicked it on, and a narrow shaft of light stabbed into the gloom. The kitten's mewl rang out, sharper and more insistent. I turned and saw it perched on the stair railing, its small body tense, tail coiled like a spring. We took a step forward together. The beam revealed new symbols scratched into the wood. A circle with intersecting lines, jagged and uneven, runic, but I'd never seen anything like it. Instinct screamed at me. This wasn't about a dying woman or starved cats. This was something else. Something darker. The roar returned, louder now, coursing through the walls. The house groaned in response as though alive. I switched to my radio, static. No response. The storm outside had knocked out power and comms. We were alone. Martinez leveled his flashlight at the symbols. "What is this? Some setup by the old woman?" I shook my head. I don't think Mrs. Langdon knew anything about this. My voice trembled as I moved closer to inspect. The wood under the etchings pulsed with a faint heat, like it had been burned hot. I pressed a gloved finger to one line. It left a faint ash smudge. My heart hammered. From somewhere above, a soft scratching started. Rhythmic, deliberate. counting off slow beats. It was the sort of sound that lodges in your skull, warping time. I swallowed hard, turned to Martinez. "That's coming from the attic," he cursed under his breath. "Of course it is." He motioned for me to follow as he climbed the stairs 2 at a time. I stayed close, flashlights casting jittery cones of light. On the landing, the kitten darted ahead, leapt onto the railing, and bounded up the final steps. We paused at the attic door, warped wood, hinges rusted. The scratching stopped. For a heartbeat, there was nothing but the hiss of rain on the roof. I rapped on the door. "Police, open up!" My voice cracked. No response. Martinez hefted his shoulder and shoved. The door swung inward easily, into darkness so black it sucked in the flashlight beam. I stepped inside first, foot sliding on old planks. The knife edge of my flashlight revealed boxes of personal belongings, trunks layered in dust, and, scattered atop them, a ring of cats. At least 10, eyes gleaming, fur standing on end. Each faced inward toward something at the center of the room. I raised my beam to focus there. A crude altar built from broken floorboards, stained with something dark. In the center lay a hand-sized object wrapped in tattered cloth. Its shape was indistinct, but the kitten scrambled forward, leapt onto the altar, and tugged at the cloth with tiny claws. "Don't move," I hissed, but it was too late. The cloth fell back, and the thing beneath, once concealed, twitched. Pale and elongated, it pulsed like a heart. The room filled with the skittering of claws as the cats surged forward. I raised my flashlight, beam shaking, to illuminate their prize, a malformed human skull, its eye sockets drilled with tiny holes, veins of dried resin crisscrossing its surface. My stomach lurched. Behind us, the door slammed shut, plunging us into oppressive darkness again. The kitten cried out, and I scooped it into my arms. Martinez fumbled for the doorknob and yanked. It wouldn't turn. The skull's resin veins cracked, and a low moan echoed from its hollow interior. The cats hissed, backs arched. I gripped Martinez's arm. "We need to get out of here, now." He nodded, voice tight. "Follow me." He backed toward the stairs, cats swarming. I stumbled, foot catching on a trunk, and the kitten slipped from my grasp, landing on the altar beside the skull. It mewled once, then was eerily still. I lunged forward. In that moment, every light in the house flickered back on. The attic was bathed in harsh fluorescent glow. The cats froze, staring at the skull. I clawed at the cloth. It no longer moved. The skull lay inert, ordinary. The cats blinked, then scattered, slipping into the shadows beyond my light. I snatched the kitten. It was breathing, its fur streaked now with resin as well as dried blood. I tucked it under my coat and raced down the stairs with Martinez. Behind us, the attic door creaked open by itself. We didn't stop to look. Back in the foyer, the front door swung wide, rain pouring in. I yanked it closed and jammed my foot against it. My radio sputtered to life. "Unit 24, status?" Dispatch crackled. "Doors jammed," I gasped. "We've got evidence of occult activity. Need EOD, hazmat, and backup on site ASAP." I switched off the mic and looked at Martinez. Rainwater dripped down his helmet, mixing with sweat. "What the hell did we just see?" he whispered. I shook my head against the cold. I don't know. But whatever it is, it started with Mrs. Langdon and took her life. And now, it's come after us. I tightened my grip on the kitten, feeling its heart racing against my ribs. The walls around us felt as though they were closing in, the house itself a predator. We were trapped in its jaws, with no clear escape, and something else was waiting, listening in the dark. I pressed my shoulder into the front door one last time before resigning myself to finding another way out. The lock held fast. 3 deadbolts, each engaged. Martinez and I exchanged a grim look. Somewhere above us, the attic door creaked open, then shut again, as though whatever had been hiding up there was now free to roam. I holstered my flashlight and switched on my body cam mic. Dispatch Unit 24. We're still inside the Langdon residence. No exit through the front. Please advise. My own voice sounded hollow in the tight hallway. The kitten in my jacket pocket let out a faint, urgent mew, a sound that reminded me how small and helpless it was. The radio crackled. Unit 24, standby. ETA rescue team, 5 minutes. Then it cut out under another burst of static. 5 minutes was too long. I glanced at Martinez. We need to find another exit. Windows, back door, anything. He nodded. Flashlight trained on the hallway. Together, we scanned the walls. Family portraits askew. Journals piled on a small table near the stairs. The tattered wedding portrait of Mrs. Langdon and her husband dated 1962. I crouched and flipped open the journal, the pages damp and smeared. The entries began innocently enough. A note about feeding the cats, a complaint about the flickering porch light, but soon devolved into unfocused ramblings. They come at night, their whisper is in the walls. Underneath, a hastily drawn symbol, the same circle with intersecting lines we'd seen in the attic, was scrawled over and over. My heart clenched. The old woman had known. She'd documented what lived in her house. She hadn't been insane. She'd been trying to warn whoever came knocking. Upstairs, a soft tapping began. Neck cracking slow, measured. 1 tap, pause, 2 taps, pause, 3. It echoed through the floorboards. Martinez aimed his flashlight upward. That came from the ceiling. He lifted his boot and kicked at the base of the stairs. The wood groaned but held. We're locked in tighter than a safe. I swallowed hard, edging past the journal. The hallway branched to the left into what had been the living room. I raised my beam into the gloom. Scattered furniture, toppled bookshelves, thick curtains swaying, though no breeze stirred them. My boot nudged something soft, an overturned satchel. I knelt and rummaged through it. Inside, Mrs. Langdon's prescription bottles, a pair of rusted keys on a ring, and a folded note. Pulling it free, I read by flashlight glow, "If you find this, leave now. Close every door. Do not let them in. They follow the youngest. Don't trust the kitten." My breath hitched. The kitten slipped from my coat at that moment, landing silently and padding toward me. I bent to scoop it up, and its eyes met mine. Pupils so large they swallowed the amber of its irises. A low purr rumbled in its throat, too deep, too resonant for something so small. I froze. Then, from somewhere behind the living room wall, a voice whispered, "He's here." I jerked upright. Martinez spun, gun drawn. What the hell was that? The whisper came again, this time louder, more distinct. "He's here with you." It seemed to emanate from the kitten itself. My stomach roiled as the kitten arched its back, fur bristling. I blinked, and it transformed. Its body elongated, eyes draining of warmth, ears shifting into curves like horns. I could feel its tiny claws pressing into my glove, too sharp, too purposeful. The kitten looked up at me, head tilting as if amused. I staggered backward. "Martinez!" My voice cracked. "It's not—" He stepped forward and grabbed my arm. "Don't touch it." He swung his flashlight beam onto the kitten. The beam wavered as if meeting resistance, the light bending unnaturally around it. The kitten's form shimmered, once, twice, and then solidified back into a normal cat. I stared, voice barely a whisper. "Did you see?" He nodded, eyes wide. Yeah. I saw another whisper, this time from the stairwell behind us. Why did you bring him? We spun toward the stairs, hearts pounding. The kitten bolted from my arms and dashed into the kitchen doorway. I chased after it, flashlight bobbing wildly, but at the threshold I stopped. The kitchen was empty, save for the overturned bowls and the splatter on the wall. Yet, from the pantry, a soft, skittering sound emerged. Martinez trained his beam on the pantry door. The scratching grew louder, sharper, like nails on dry wood. "Open it," I ordered, voice shaking. He frowned. "You go first. You heard the note. We close doors, we don't let them in." My tone was colder than I felt. He recognized the seriousness and pressed my hand onto the pantry handle. I eased it open. The beam swept across hanging jars, packets of cat food, then settled on the far corner where a trapdoor lay, flushing with the tiles. A small rope looped through a hole in the lid, the hatch to the cellar. I crouched, finger on the loop. "Cellar entrance," I breathed. "That has to be our way out." Martinez knelt beside me. "Going down there seems preferable to waiting for rescue," I snapped. I hooked the rope and lifted. The trapdoor creaked, revealing steep stairs descending into black nothingness. An acrid stench, dust and mold, and something faintly metallic wafted upward. I flipped on my headlamp, illuminating the descent. Each step groaned like a protest. The kitten mewled at the top before vanishing down the stairs. I glanced at Martinez. He drew a deep breath, then followed. The air in the cellar was cold and damp, clinging to my shirt. My beam cut through the gloom to reveal crates stacked along the walls, and in the center 3 overturned metal barrels. Rust streaked their sides, and sludge pooled around their bases. I stepped around them, heart thundering. The kitten's faint mew drew me forward into the far corner, where I lit on a small alcove carved into the stone foundation. Inside lay a child's coffin. It was narrow and shallow, more like a bier than a burial vault. The lid lay beside it, splintered by force. Inside, the kitten sat perfectly still, back pressed against the coffin's curve, staring up at me with those impossibly large eyes. But the coffin's interior was not empty. Beside the kitten lay a bundle of tattered infant's clothing, and a doll stripped of limbs. The fabric was stained dark, and the doll's painted face was cracked. A pair of tiny brittle bones lay half hidden beneath the folds of cloth. I stumbled back, gripping the beam so hard my knuckles whitened. "Martinez," I whispered. This is wrong." He stepped beside me, voice low. "What is all this? Human remains?" I swallowed, stomach roiling. "It looks like an infant. That kitten's been guarding it." I bent to inspect one of the small bones, ivory white but chipped at the edges. My headlamp flickered and I reflexively covered it with my hand until the beam steadied. Shadows danced along the cellar walls, elongating, twisting. I could almost hear the soft scraping of claws on stone. Then a voice, soft, playful, almost childlike, whispered from the darkness beyond the barrels. "Come play with us." My blood ran cold. The kitten's tail flicked, and it let out a sharp hiss. I drew my sidearm, pumping awareness back into my limbs. Martinez raised his flashlight, scanning the space beneath the barrels, the cracks in the stone walls. The whisper came again, louder, echoing around us. "He wants to play." My heart slammed against my ribs as the barrels shifted. With a groan of metal, one rolled forward. The kitten yowled and darted up my leg, claws snagging on my uniform. I spun to catch it, but in that moment a black shape bolted from behind the barrels. A child's figure, gaunt and pale, too tall and too thin, limbs bending at unnatural angles. I fired a single round, a warning shot into the far wall. The bullet ricocheted off stone, sparks dancing. The figure let out a wail, human yet twisted, and vanished into the deeper recesses of the cellar. My flashlight flickered and died, plunging us into darkness. I fumbled for a spare, and Martinez clapped a hand on my shoulder, voice trembling. "God help us," he whispered. I clicked the new light on. Dust motes drifted in the beam. The kitten was clutched in my arms, soaking wet, trembling. The infant's coffin was empty now. No bones, no doll, no clothing. Just splinters where the lid had been pried away. Whatever had been in there had slipped away. My radio crackled again. "Unit 24, status." Dispatch's voice sounded distant, wavering. I pressed the mic. "We're in the cellar of 482 Miller's Hollow Lane. We've found an infant's remains. We need SWAT and homicide. Do not send rescue team without armed escort." There was a long pause. Then the dispatcher responded, voice tight. "Copy that. Backup en route. Hold position." Holding position meant staying here, in this tomb of horrors. I pressed my back against the damp stone. Martinez did the same. We were pinned between a locked front door upstairs and something in the darkness behind us that didn't want to let us go. A soft scratching began, first on the trapdoor above us, then from the opposite wall, circling around. The kitten let out a strangled hiss and wriggled free, landing on its paws. It stalked toward the darkness, fur bristling. I shouted, "No!" and pointed my flashlight, but the beam cut through nothing, only dust swirling in the air. Then, from the pitch black ahead, shapes emerged at the edge of the light. Dozens of small, hunched forms, cats, dozens of them, fur matted, eyes glowing in the beam. They moved as one, creeping toward us in a silent tide. Behind them, a thin, childlike laughter echoed, high-pitched, innocent, and utterly inhuman. I raised my weapon, hands shaking. "Martinez, fly up those stairs, we secure the exit." He nodded, face grim. I darted for the kitten, scooping it up. Its tiny heart hammered against my chest. I sprinted toward the trapdoor, heaving it open. The cats lunged, claws scraping, but I slammed the hatch behind me and kicked it shut. I braced my weight against it as Martinez clambered up. Moments later, I staggered after him, bleeding sweat and mud. We burst into the kitchen, a harsh, white, fluorescent light flickering overhead. My radio crackled. "Unit 24, confirmation, SWATETA 3 minutes. I set the kitten gently on the counter. It crouched, tail twitching, eyes locked on the pantry door. I followed its gaze and saw the circle and line runes again, now painted in smeared blood across the door's surface. My head pounded as I slid to the floor, back against the cabinets. This thing started with Mrs. Langdon's death, I rasped, and it's feeding, growing stronger every time we're here. Martinez knelt beside me, wiping sweat from his brow. "We hold here until backup arrives, then we get the hell out." I nodded, pulling my radio close. The kitten let out a low purr, too deep, too resonant. I met its gaze. In its reflection, I saw the dark shapes of those cats, the child's coffin, the whispering voices, an endless cycle of hunger and terror. And I realized this house wasn't just possessed. It was alive. I felt the first deafening blast of breaching charges before I saw the flash of light through the kitchen window. The shutters exploded inward, shards of wood spraying like shrapnel. I slammed my back against the counter, heart hammering, the kitten sliding from my arms onto a stack of dusty cookbooks. Martinez dove for cover behind the refrigerator as a squad of SWAT officers in full gear flooded in, weapons raised, flashbangs cracking overhead. "Police! Secure the perimeter!" I yelled, voice raw. My ears rang, and for a moment I couldn't see. Only the halo of white light and the blur of armored figures. My throat burned, lungs spasmed, and I clamped a hand over my mouth to stem the cough that threatened to burst free. When the light faded, silhouettes stood at every doorway, flashlights carving arcs across the room. One of the SWAT sergeants, a tall woman with a stern face, strode over. "Lieutenant Garvey?" she asked, voice urgent. "We got your call. Where's the suspect?" "There's no suspect," I panted. "There's something inside this house." I raked a hand through my hair, glancing at Martinez. "And we need to get out. Now." The sergeant's eyes flicked to the kitten perched on the counter, its small body poised, tail twitching like a metronome. In the strobing light of the entryway, its eyes glowed a feral amber. She raised a gloved hand but hesitated. "Is that a cat?" "That kitten," I said, voice urgent, "is the key. Whatever's happening here, it started with that house full of cats." I pointed back toward the hallway where the runic blood symbols smeared the pantry door. "It's alive. It's using them." Behind us, another officer secured the front door, 2 more braces on each deadbolt, and shoved it open. Rain hissed in as water streamed across the floorboards. The lodge light above flickered mercurially as they set up stanchions to hold it open, forming a makeshift exit corridor. "Grab the evidence bags," Martinez said, yanking another flashlight from his vest. "And get that journal. We need proof for investigators." He hustled toward the small table where Mrs. Langdon's journal lay, pages soaked but still intact. I joined him, scooping it up and tucking it into an evidence tote. The pages, filled with trembling scrawls about whispering walls and hungry eyes, confirmed what no one else would believe. Then, in the periphery of my vision, I saw it. A shifting mass at the end of the living room, where the sofas and armchairs had been slashed and overturned. Swiveling, I swept my light beam across the floor and froze. The cats were back. Dozens of them, piled atop one another in a writhing heap that pulsed like a living thing. Their eyes shone in the beam, unblinking, their fur spiked and bristling. The SWAT officers raised their weapons, voices terse. "Clear the area," one barked. I leapt forward, hands raised. "Wait, no, they're not the enemy." But the mass of hissing felines unfurled into motion, springing toward us. Martinez blared into his radio. "Back up, we've got animal movement." But the transmission died in another burst of static. I dove for the kitten on the counter. It leapt down, tail flicking, and ran along the base of the cabinets, weaving through the ankles of armored boots. I caught it under my arm just as the first panicked officer swung his baton at the onrushing cats. He struck one solid blow, and the cat vanished into a cloud of shadow. Not killed, dissolved. Its meowy shriek echoed, and then silence. Every officer froze, flashlights trembling. The haze in the room thickened, as though the very air was coagulating around us. I felt something brush my ankle, a soft rub of fur, and looked down to see the kitten's body growing, limbs elongating, back arching. In seconds, it transformed into a towering panther-like beast, fur charcoal black, eyes burning gold. It crouched in the center of the kitchen floor, mouth parting to reveal teeth too large and too sharp for any normal cat. My breath hitched in my throat. I backed away, dragging Martinez with me. "We need to retreat, now!" I bellowed. The SWAT sergeant grabbed my arm, glancing at the creature, and then at me. "You said it was the key. You knew this would happen?" she demanded. "No choice," I gasped. "It's leading them. It's drawing power from them." Behind us, the beast let out a low, reverberating growl. Every officer flinched, some dropping to one knee, weapons shaking. The walls throbbed with the same pulse I'd felt in the attic ruins. The house itself seemed to breathe. timbers creaking in the gale of rain and fear. I tensed, ready to spring. Then the beast leapt, straight toward the pantry door, jaws opening in a silent roar. I watched, horrified, as it struck the door, and with a thunderous crack the wood splintered outward. The runic symbols burned bright red, glowing embers drifting from the edges. A wave of heat blasted the room, and I stumbled backward, ears popping. In the sudden darkness that followed, I heard laughter, innocent and cruel, echoing off the walls. Play with us. Flashlights swung wildly, but found nothing. The doorway lay empty, the pantry beyond filled with shadows that moved of their own accord. The beast, no longer a cat, but no longer an animal, flesh and blood, emerged from the pantry, walking upright on bone-thin legs. It held the child's skull, the one we'd found in the cellar, brandished like a trophy. The resin veins gleamed, and the creature placed it atop the shattered front doorway. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the tableau. Officer bodies frozen in shock, the house warped and trembling, and the beast, grinning with impossible teeth, staring directly at me. Its eyes bored into mine, and I heard it whisper, "You brought him to me." I trembled, the kitten's body inside my jacket writhing against my ribs. I swallowed, voice cracking. I didn't know I was trying to help. Its grin widened. "All houses hunger," it said, voice layered with dozens of tiny mews. "And I am the feast," the SWAT sergeant screamed, raising her weapon. The shot rang out, but the creature flinched as though swatted, then lunged at her in an impossible burst of speed. The doorframe exploded inward, and the beast vanished into the night, dragging the panicked sergeant with it. Her scream echoed, then silence. Lightning flashed again, briefly revealing the wrecked kitchen and the open front door, through which only a gale of rain and the dark woods beyond were visible. I blinked into the darkness. The kitten's hot weight pressed against my chest. I knelt, unzipping my coat to peer at it. Its eyes were human now, pupils horizontal slits across amber irises. It blinked once, then spoke in a child's voice, clear and innocent. "Will you stay or leave me?" I froze. The rain pelted the threshold. Thunder rolled overhead. My radio lay dead on the floor. The shattered door swung slowly in the wind. Behind me, Martinez lay unmoving, his eyes open in horror. I swallowed, mind racing. "Leave. Leave you," I whispered. The kitten cocked its head. "This is home." I looked out into the storm, toward the pitch-black woods. Then back at the ruined kitchen, at the runes bleeding into the floorboards. I felt the whisper in my mind, soft, patient, urging me to step forward, to cross the threshold into the darkness. My hand trembled as I reached for the door frame. The kitten let out a soft purr, its small body quivering with expectation. The house around me seemed to sigh, walls shifting as if to make room. Rain spattered my face, cold and relentless. I hesitated, heart pounding. And then, with the echo of its voice ringing in my ears, "Stay or leave me." My hand finally closed on the door handle. I still remember the way the headlights cut through that rolling fog as Maria and I crested the small rise on Highway 127. The county roads out here aren't much more than narrow ribbons of asphalt, flanked by fields of corn that rustle and hiss like restless spirits in the night wind. At 2:15 a.m., the only other sound was the steady thrum of our cruiser's engine and the distant hoot of an owl perched on a fence post. I tucked my badge under my jacket and tapped the mic on my shoulder. "We're approaching the Caldwell residence," I murmured. The dispatcher's voice crackled back. "Be advised, male subject known to have prior assault, possible domestic disturbance. No answer at a front door. Proceed to back. I killed the engine and slipped out, boots crunching on gravel. Maria slid out on my left, flashlight cutting a narrow beam through the darkness. The porch light at the front was dead. Whoever lived here had either forgotten to reset the timer or didn't want anyone to see inside. We moved like shadows, circling the house to the back porch. The siding was cracked and peeling, and tufts of damp moss had taken root in the seams. I caught a whiff of something sour, old sweat, stale beer, and something that might have been blood. Every muscle in me was taut. I kept my hand on my taser, remembering the instructor's warning. Only go for the firearm if there's no risk to bystanders. Out here, the Caldwell place was the only house for half a mile. One misfired round could send a slug through a bedroom window into someone's sleeping child. Better to try containment first. We reached the back door. The lock had been forced. Splintered wood on one side, an empty hole where the deadbolt used to be. "Looks like someone kicked it in," Maria said softly. I scanned the windows. Curtains were drawn, but something moved behind them. A flicker of fabric, a shadow shifting. My pulse sped up. I keyed the mic again. "Perimeter secure," I whispered. "No sign of anyone around the back yet." Maria circled to the right, I to the left, flashlights in hand. My beam picked out a path of overturned flower pots, shards of ceramic scattered across the concrete slab. The grass beyond was trampled, as if someone had barged through the yard at a run. Then I heard it, a faint scrape, like fingernails dragging across the wood of the house. I froze. The wind died down, and for a heartbeat there was nothing but the distant hum of the cruiser's engine and the pounding of my own heart. Then, shuffle, shuffle. Something was moving behind me, faster than a human walking pace. I spun, flashlight sweeping the ground first, then rising. And there he was, Henry Caldwell, 7 feet tall, broad shoulders that strained against the fabric of his t-shirt, face half swollen and contorted from a broken jaw. In his hand, a long-handled shovel glinted as the beam caught it. His growl echoed against the side of the house, low, animalistic. "No one move," I shouted, voice louder than I'd meant. Maria's light swung toward us. Henry lunged, hips diving forward in a terrifying display of speed and strength. I barely had time to step back before the metal blade whistled past my ear, carving a groove in the siding where I'd stood. There was no room to draw my weapon without risking a ricochet. All I could do was run. I turned on my heel and sprinted toward the side gate, shovel swings thudding against wood behind me. Maria's voice rose in a shout, something about deploying OC. I vaulted the waist-high gate, landing hard on my side, rolling once to absorb the impact. Pain flared in my ribs, but I forced myself up. Henry came crashing around the corner, eyes wild. He swung again, the shovel catching the gatepost as he hurtled forward, snapping it loose. Maria stepped into view, pepper spray trained on his face. "Stop!" she cried, fingers squeezing the canister. A cloud of chemical fire exploded around him. He froze, then staggered back, hands clawing at his eyes. The shovel clattered to the ground. I kicked it aside and pressed the cuffs into Henry's wrists, his massive arms trembling as I locked them. "You're okay," I murmured, though not sure I convinced even myself. His breathing was ragged. Each inhale sounded like a struggle. Maria knelt by his side. "He's blind," she said, voice calm. "Stand clear." Henry collapsed onto his knees, face pressed to the concrete. His sweat-slick forehead glowed in the flashlight beam. I leaned in, voice low. "Henry Caldwell, you're under arrest for domestic assault." His head lolled, throat working as if he wanted to speak but couldn't. She shone her light across his features. One side of his face was slack, jaw hanging crooked, cheek swollen from where his wife had struck him. Carla had told dispatch she'd hit him with a garden trowel after he forced their son to drink whiskey. When I'd arrived, I didn't know the why. Now I did, and it chilled me. We guided him to his feet and half dragged, half supported him toward the cruiser. He was like a wounded bear, groggy, disoriented, dangerous. As we shoved him into the back seat, I noticed the way he kept turning his head, listening, straining, like he was trying to make sense of a world gone silent in one ear. I climbed into the driver's seat, heart still pounding. Maria threw the shovel and the shattered gatepost into the bed of our truck. She slid in beside me and locked the doors. I clicked the mic. "Dispatch, we've got him in custody. 2 officers secure. Suspect DAMV. Transport beginning to Greene County Hospital." The engine roared as we pulled away. Behind us, the Caldwell farmhouse receded into the fog. I glanced in the rearview mirror at Henry's profile, hunched, staring out into the night, eyes glassy. I wondered what went through his mind in those seconds between consciousness and pepper spray. Did he see his wife cowering in the doorway? Did he hear the boy pleading? Or was he only aware of a kind of darkness that blocked out everything but rage? At the hospital, the triage nurse hustled us back to an exam room. Henry's cuffed hands rested on the metal table, wrists bruised but defiant. "He'll need his jaw set," the nurse said, checking vitals. "But there's something else. His pupils are uneven and his reflexes are off." "Possible concussion?" Maria asked. "Something more." The nurse's brow furrowed. "We need a CT scan now." I stepped outside into the sterile hallway. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. I closed my eyes and drew a long breath. The adrenaline was draining, leaving tiredness that felt like weights on my limbs. I replayed the call in my head. The broken porch light, the trampled yard, that first glimpse of Henry's twisted face. Minutes later, a doctor emerged, coat flapping open, scan results in hand. "You need to see this," she said, leading me to a viewing station. The CT images showed a mass, large, irregular, pressing against his frontal lobe. "This could explain the sudden aggression," she said. "He's got a brain tumor that's likely been growing for months." I felt a hollow knot form in my stomach. "Could he have known?" I whispered. "Probably not. He might not have realized the changes in behavior were from a medical condition." I thought about Carla's voice on the porch, tearful, shaky, when she told us how her husband snapped without warning. About the boy, locked out at nearly 3 a.m, terrified, and about the darkness behind Henry's eyes, the weight in his hand as he waited for us. Back in the hallway, Maria joined me. She placed a hand on my shoulder. "That call saved his life," she said softly. I nodded, but there was no comfort in it. I'd worked plenty of domestic violence calls, but never one that ended in emergency brain surgery. We'd cuffed him, arrested him, booked him, and unwittingly delivered him to the operating table. When Henry was wheeled away, surgical mask in place, I watched his scarred jawline disappear down the corridor. I wondered how we'd explain this to the DA. Mitigating circumstances, medical emergency. Somehow, we'd make it work. But more than that, I wondered how often a routine night shift call hid something so close to death. By the time I slipped back into the cruiser, dawn was just brushing the horizon with pale light. The fog had lifted, but I could still feel its chill in my bones. Maria started the engine and keyed the mic to call in our report. I stared down the empty road ahead, every mile of it haunted by the thought that in the darkness, someone, or something, was waiting. And I knew this was only the beginning of what would become a night shift I'd never forget. The hospital hallway smelled of antiseptic and fear. I'd never expected to feel relieved watching a man, someone I'd cuffed moments earlier, rolled into surgery. But when the doors to the OR closed, I realized we'd done more than make an arrest. We'd likely given Henry Caldwell a chance to live. Maria and I sat in the waiting room under harsh fluorescent lights that buzzed like angry insects. Every 10 minutes, a nurse passed by with a clipboard, offering updates we barely heard. Vital signs stable. Tumor location confirmed. Surgery estimated 2 hours. I stared at the wall clock, the seconds dragging by as if wading through molasses. My mind replayed the night's events on a loop. Henry's eyes glazed with confusion. The shotgun crack of his wife's garden trowel. The hiss of pepper spray in the dark. Somewhere between adrenaline and exhaustion, I felt the ground shift beneath me. A creeping realization that policing at 2 a.m. didn't end when cuffs clicked or paperwork finished. Sometimes it reached into the operating theater too. When the surgeon finally appeared, she wore her mask like a badge of triumph. "He's out of surgery," she said, voice muffled but upbeat. "Tumor removed, benign but massive. He'll need ICU care, but if all goes well, he'll recover." Relief and guilt washed over me in waves. Relief that Henry would live. Guilt that his violent outburst was no one's fault, but the growth in his own brain. We left the hospital at dawn. The sky was a dull gray smear. The cornfields beyond the parking lot bathed in a pale, dripping light. "You okay?" Maria asked as we trudged back to the cruiser. My nod felt shaky. "Just thinking about what we do," I said. She slid behind the wheel without comment and started the engine. The drive back to the station was quiet, save for the whisper of tires on wet pavement. Inside the precinct, paperwork stretched before me like an unforgiving sea. Incident reports, evidence logs, witness statements. I filled out forms until my hand cramped and my eyes blurred. Carla Caldwell's statement was raw with terror. How she'd watched her husband change in the weeks leading up to the fight. How his mood swung from gentle father to enraged stranger in an instant. She'd never suspected a tumor, just something lurking in the shadows of his mind. By the time I finished, it was noon. The cafeteria's fluorescent glare did nothing to lift the haze that clung to my thoughts. I downed a lukewarm coffee as I read through Carla's photo lineup choices. She identified Henry easily, though his swelling had gone down enough to make his jaw roughly symmetrical again. Family liaison officers would pick him up at the hospital for transport to jail once he was discharged. That afternoon, I sat in a quiet corner of the briefing room, cradling my radio like a lifeline. Calls crackled in the ether. Fender benders, barking dogs, stray cattle in the road. Routine, predictable, safe. Yet I found myself leaning into the speaker, hungry for dispatch's voice. Better to be busy than to sit with my own thoughts. Night fell again, earlier than I expected. When I clocked back in at 7 p.m., the sky was already dim. The silhouettes of cornstalks swaying like silent sentinels beyond the bay windows. My partner for the shift was Officer Jacobs, a rookie fresh out of the academy with a clean record and eager eyes. He didn't know about Henry Caldwell yet. I left it that way. We ran calls through the evening. A stolen bicycle from Old Mill Park. A trespassing complaint at Maple Grove Cemetery. A tree branch down on Elm Street. Jacobs's flashlight beam danced across graffiti-scrawled walls as we checked for squatters. A barking German shepherd behind a chain-link fence snarled at us, teeth bared. I placed a gloved hand on the animal's collar and spoke softly until its hackles settled. Somewhere after midnight, dispatch sent us out on a welfare check. An elderly man, Mr. Landon, hadn't answered his phone in days, and neighbors complained of strange noises at his trailer on County Road 52. Jacobs looked uneasy. "Just to check in," I said, locking my harness. "We'll keep it quick." The trailer sat crooked on a patch of gravel, radio static echoing off its metal walls. The front door was ajar. I nudged it open with my boot. Inside, the air reeked of mildew and ammonia. The living room light flickered, casting shadows that slithered across peeling wallpaper. An old armchair faced a dusty TV, static crackling on the screen. I called out, "Mr. Landon, it's Officer Matthews with the Greene County Sheriff's Office. Are you all right?" Silence. Then, a shuffle from the bedroom. Jacobs and I exchanged a glance and moved in together, weapons drawn but unelevated. The hallway was narrow. I could feel Jacob's breath behind me, steady but tense. The bedroom door stood open. In the pale glow of its single bulb, I saw him. Mr. Landon, slumped on a tattered mattress, eyes wide with terror. Beside him, scrawled in what looked like blood, words on the wall. "They watch at night." Jacobs's radio chirped and cut out. The hallway lights flickered, and for a second, the room felt alive with something else. A presence just beyond the beam of my flashlight. I swallowed, telling myself it was an electrical fault or a prankster's stunt. Visiting Mr. Landon was one thing. Encountering a message in blood was another. I approached the wall, tracing the letters with my gloved fingertip. The texture was sticky. Jacobs edged forward. "We need backup," I whispered, radioing dispatch. Then I heard the floorboards creak behind me. Slow. Deliberate. I spun, flashlight beam slicing through the gloom. Nothing moved, but the hairs on my arm prickled. The bedroom door slammed shut. The TV in the living room sputtered on, flickering through, static until it landed on a black and white image, a grainy feed of the trailer's interior. The camera angle was odd, slightly above eye level, as if footage from a security camera perched on the ceiling. I'd never installed one. Neither had Mr. Landon. "Get out," I muttered. Jacobs yanked at the doorknob, but it held fast. The windows rattled, though the night outside was still. A soft tapping began, wood against glass, in the window to my right. I shone the light there, and my heart froze. Outside, a figure crouched low, face obscured by shadow. It didn't move, it just watched. "Get the door," I hissed. Jacobs kicked it, once, twice, until the frame cracked. We burst into the hallway, weapons raised, light sweeping. Empty. The message scrawled in blood was gone, wiped clean as if never there. The TV blinked off. The trailer was silent, save for the distant hum of traffic on County Road 52. Backup arrived moments later. Deputies swarmed the property, searching the yard. No sign of anyone outside except a single footprint in the mud. Huge, too big for Mr. Landon, too human-looking to be a deer. I stared at it, feeling that familiar knot of dread tighten in my chest. When the lead deputy advised me to take some time off, to process, my mind was already racing toward tomorrow's shift. Because out here in rural Kentucky night shifts, darkness held secrets. Whether it was a man driven mad by a tumor or a presence that scribbled its warnings in blood, the road never truly went dark again. And I knew that come midnight I'd be back behind the wheel, searching for the next call where normal became impossible. The pre-dawn hours passed in a haze of half-sleep and sudden wakings. I'd dragged myself back to my apartment after that call at Mr. Landon's trailer, but exhaustion didn't mean rest. My head felt tight, as if memories were pressing from behind my eyes. Every time I closed them, I saw Henry Caldwell's swollen face, dripping with sweat, and those frantic words on the wall. "They watch at night," smeared in something dark and sticky. My phone buzzed at 4:23 a.m. It was Maria. I let it go to voicemail. I didn't want to hear her voice yet. Didn't want to promise that I was okay because I wasn't. Instead, I lay on my back and stared at the ceiling. The glow from the street lamp outside slicing slats of pale yellow across the plaster. The hush of my living room felt oppressive, as though invisible eyes ballasted the darkness. After an hour, I gave up and got dressed, still in uniform, and drove back to the station. By 6 a.m., I was filing reports from the night before. Incident numbers, times, witness statements. My handwriting looked shaky like a child's. Jacobs popped in with 2 cups of coffee, the early shift deputies yawning and filing past. I nodded wordlessly and accepted the cup. Black, no sugar. He gave me a sympathetic look and left before I could make it awkward. Despite the hours since the trailer call, I could still hear the echo of floorboards creaking, that soft tapping at the window. I found myself shooting glances at every reflective surface in the office. Computer screens, polished wood desks, half expecting to catch a glimpse of something standing behind me. The fluorescent lights felt too bright, like they were flaunting the truth rather than illuminating it. Dispatch breezed through routine calls. A 2-car fender bender on Route 10, a fight at a late-night convenience store, an alarm at the Methodist church that turned out to be mice in the attic. Nothing that would unspool your mind at 2 a.m. Nothing that would leave a message written in blood. At 10 a.m., our sheriff called a briefing for all on-duty personnel. We crowded into the small conference room. The sheriff's tone was curt. 2 items, he said. First, Mr. Caldwell is stable, out of ICU, and will be arraigned later this week. Courtesy drop-off by the Family Liaison Unit at the courthouse. Second, surveillance footage has been found at Mr. Landon's property. I'll show you. He tapped a remote, and the projector blinked to life. There, grainy and black and white, was Mr. Landon's living room. The camera was angled high, peering down like a crow's eye. The feed jumped from static to a shot of the front door trembling as someone, or something, pushed halfway in. Then the camera swiveled slowly, as if on a mount with a motor, pivoting to scan the empty room. The resolution was so poor that at first I thought the human figure crouched in the corner was a trick of the grain. But as the seconds ticked by, I saw the shape straighten, pale face emerging from shadow. There was no twitch of movement. It simply stood and stared, head tilted, as if waiting for us to notice. Then the feed cut out, static for a heartbeat, and we returned to the ceiling shot again. No timestamps, no audio, whispers broke out among the deputies. "Where did they find that?" someone asked. The sheriff clicked off the projector. "It was behind the bookcase," he said. "Older camera, battery power only. Mr. Landon insisted it was his. He claimed he installed it weeks ago because he felt watched." He let that hang in the air. "We'll catalog it as evidence. If no operable footage before the assault, that's fine, but it confirms someone, or something, was in the trailer before our arrival." My stomach knotted. The phrase, "they watch at night," drifted back to me and I swallowed hard. I couldn't look around the room without feeling those invisible eyes on me. That afternoon, I volunteered for extra patrol. Better to be out on the road than in the station's stale air. Jacobs joined me. We ran calls through the suburban streets under a blushing sky. Kids waiting for the school bus, bleary from yawning in their pajamas. A jogger pacing the sidewalk with headphones in, oblivious. Nothing to suggest a lurking watcher. Around 3 p.m., we got a call about a disturbance at a convenience store on Oak Avenue. The clerk reported a tall, pale man whispering to himself at the gas pumps, then darting off into the shadows when approached. We arrived to find only the clerk. a middle-aged woman with dyed hair and nervous eyes. She described the man as more than 7 feet tall, wearing a dark hoodie, hands shoved in pockets, gaze fixed downward. He vanished before I could ask if he was okay, she told us. Felt off. No footprints in the gravel, no gas siphoning evidence, just a sense of wrongness. We canvassed the area, turned up nothing. Jacobs shrugged it off as a homeless guy picking up empty bottles. I didn't argue, but I felt the hair on my neck rise whenever I glanced at the gray building, waiting for the man with the hoodie to step out of the dusk. Back at the station, I found an email from dispatch. Unidentified flying object reported over County Road 127. No further details. Underneath was a news link. Blurry images of a saucer-shaped light hovering over fields at midnight, witnessed by a farmer who insisted it watched him as he slept. I closed the tab. Enough weirdness for 1 week. That night, I patrolled Highway 127 again. Moonless sky, wet pavement reflecting our headlights like silver ribbons. The Caldwell farmhouse came into view, still boarded up where the door had been battered. I slowed the cruiser, feeling the weight of 2 nights' events bearing down on me. Maria sat beside me, silent, her flashlight braced in her lap like a talisman. We edged past the house. I glanced toward the broken windows, half expecting to see a figure standing inside, but there was nothing, just emptiness. The fields on either side whispered in the breeze. I turned my head back to the road, but out of the corner of my eye, I caught movement. A dark shape slipped through the cornstalks, tall, limb-like, gliding rather than walking. "Did you see that?" I asked, voice low. Maria swung her light into the field. The beam danced across leaves, then settled on the edge of the road. Footprints pressed into the soft shoulder, huge, deeper than a man's boot. They led back toward the farmhouse, then diverged, heading into the field between the rows. We parked, doors open, flashlights raised. I followed the prints into the corn, each stalk towering over me like a monolith. The air was damp, heavy with the scent of earth. The flashlight beam trembled in my hand. I called Henry Caldwell's name almost reflexively, as if he'd answer. But no voice, just that hush and the rustle of leaves overhead. Suddenly, the beam caught something strapped to a stalk, the old camera, its lens facing inward on its mount. The same battered model from Landon's trailer, battery pack taped to the back, dirt and splintered wood shavings on its base. I touched it gingerly, fingers trembling. The date stamp inside the battery compartment read 3 weeks ago, before Landon ever reported feeling watched. I snapped photos, radioed for evidence. Maria caught up, breathing hard. "Why set it here?" she whispered. "Who's filming who?" I didn't have an answer. The prints continued past the camera, deeper into the corn. We followed until the stalks thinned and we emerged into a small clearing. Grass crushed and bare, as if something huge had rested there. The air was colder, the wind gone. My breath puffed in front of me. Then I heard it. A slow, deliberate clapping, like hands striking slick skin, coming from the center of the clearing. I shone the light. There was no one there. My pulse pounded so hard it echoed in my ears. I half expected someone to step out, mask their face, but instead there was only emptiness. The soft earth beneath my boots squelched with the moisture of the night. I closed my eyes, trying to steady myself. The clapping stopped. For a moment, there was nothing but the chorus of unseen creatures in the dark. Then, from directly behind me, a voice, low, distorted, not quite human, whispered, "Why are you here?" I spun, light sweeping the clearing, but there was no one. The camera lens reflected the beam like a single, unblinking eye. I lunged for it, ripped it down, and the battery pack fell, skidding across the ground. No more clapping, no more whisper, just the cornstalks swaying. We retraced our steps, moving fast until the farmhouse came into view. I flicked on the predator lights of the cruiser. The beams sliced through the fog, illuminating nothing but fields. I climbed in, heart hammering, and slammed the door. Maria circled back with the camera. She slid in beside me, her face pale. On the drive back, I reached for the camera, watched the grainy screen strobe to life. We saw ourselves, headlights blazing, stepping out of the cruiser like invaders. But behind us, something crouched in the corn, a silhouette so tall it nearly touched the top of the stalks. It shifted its head slightly, tilted down, as if studying us. Then the image cut to static. I killed the engine on the edge of town and stared at the black screen. "Who's watching us?" I whispered. Maria didn't answer. The silence was heavier than any shout. I wondered if this was still a police call or if we'd crossed the line into something we couldn't arrest or report. I realized then that the night shift never really ends. The darkness isn't empty. It's full of eyes that follow you home. That's the thing about patrolling these roads. You learn to expect the unexpected. But nobody ever told me what to do when the unexpected is something that can't be fingerprinted, subpoenaed, or locked away. So I ask you, when the lights go out and the roads lie silent, are you truly alone, or is someone, or something, watching from the shadows?